Hello, konnichiwa, and welcome to Japan for round 6 of the first season of the Virtual Motorsports Pro Series. My name is Edward Hunter. Joining me in the commentary box, I'm proud to say, for the first time this season, is my good friend and co-commentator, Caitlin Penny, and of course, Nicolaus Domino on broadcast direction. So, Caitlin, welcome to Fuji. It's the scene of round 6 of our exciting championship. It's also the penultimate round of our sort of sprint championship. We got an endurance and a sprint championship, or sort of sub-championships in the Virtual Motorsport Series, of course. So there's this round and one more to go in the sprint series, but we've also got the overall championship, which is especially close in GD3 and still quite close in Hypercar, though. But anyway, Fuji is a really, really fantastic circuit, and I'm sure we're in for a fantastic show tonight as we look at one of the Cadillacs absolutely drifting through the final couple of corners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, Ed. Thank you for inviting me. It was quite a last-minute thing, and I have to admit I'm still getting up to speed on everything that's going on in the championship, but I'm here just to provide that colour commentary and let you guys know what will be going through the drivers' minds at different points and what's going on that I can see with my own eyes. But yes, thank you very much for having me, Ed. Good to meet you, everyone. My name is Caitlin, and I'm not Brayden.
There we go. So anyway, Caitlin, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, because I'm sure I can give you a somewhat interesting, or at least lengthy answer if possible. But anyway, in the 5 minutes that we've got, 3 minutes I should say, before qualifying begins, we might have just enough time to look at some of our championship standings. And here is the overall standings for the Hypercar championship, and no surprise whatsoever to see a 4-time FSR champion and Virtual Le Mans pole sitter Jene Simoncic running out front. He did have to miss the race at Sebring, of course, the sprint round there, but he's been winning the last 2 rounds in succession, so Simoncic is looking to make it a 3 wins in 3 weeks, a bit of a hat trick after winning the endurance race at Le Mans, the sprint round at Monza, and now at Fuji, of course. But just 8 points behind him in the championship is Michi Hoyer, of course, his former teammate, another man with a lot of pedigree in sim racing. And Hoyer and David Rokcek in that Lamborghini are in a very, very close fight for the lead of the sprint championship as well. David Rokcek, sadly, I think has had to miss some of these last couple of rounds due to scheduling commitments essentially getting in the way, so we might not be seeing a whole lot of David Rokcek tonight, but certainly our top 2 in those BMWs looking to do battle at the top, with Fabio Grigoletto, the Italian, in the Cadillac, is in 4th at the moment. He was on the podium as well all the way back at Sebring, and certainly he has put in some impressive performances this season. Aurélien Bru, the Frenchman, was in the top 6 last time out at Monza, of course, on 42 points. A little bit of drift of the front runners. Then we've got Mario Tump. He's missed a couple of rounds in the Porsche, but he is still 6th in the standings, ahead of Marco De Buono, the Italian, in the Ferrari on 24 points. Then Mark Veit is just a point behind him, the German, in his Porsche, with David Levy, the Spaniard, equal with Amos Dorito on 19 points, and they are just ahead of Jules Neal in that tough fight to get into the top 10. And a reminder, if you finish in the top 10, the overall standings, that's automatic entry to Season 2 of the VMS Pro Series. Of course, there are a lot of people trying to get those coveted spots. Here's the sprint standings. You see equal on points, Michi Hoyer and Davin Rokcek, 58 points each. Although, of course, with Davin Rokcek not able to be here tonight, it's really about Hoyer versus Simoncic. And, of course, Hoyer with 15-point gap. If he can pull another 10 points on Simoncic potentially by winning with Simoncic in 3rd, that would put Hoyer in potentially an unbeatable position in the standings going into next round, next week, of course, our final sprint round of the season. Fabio Grigoletto is 4th in these standings as well, with Aurélien Bru in 5th. David Levy up in 6th, just ahead of Amos Dorito on the same amount of points, 18, with Mario Tump and Mark Veit also equal on 10 points. Then Marco De Buono on 7 points rounds out your top 10 in the sprint standings. Now finally, here's the interesting one everyone's excited about. Sebastian Funch, of course, has won the last 2 races in a row in GT3 class. Kieran Prendergast yet to get a win on the board. but he's been incredibly consistent this season, just 2 points behind then after holding the championship lead for so long. He had a horrible run at Monza with a wheel failure, and then a penalty for speeding in the pit lane demoted him to 5th essentially by the end. But nonetheless, he is looking to strike back today. Callum Cripps, the Brabham Esports driver, is 3rd on 66 points. Then it is Fabian Ballet on 49 points. Arda Erchan, who's returning after missing a couple of races, he's on 43 points, equal with Michel Rodriguez, the Super Swede, not to be confused with Hollywood superstar Michel Rodriguez, of course. Matteo Blotto is 7th on 40 points, and it's Kamal Naui 8th on 39, with Erwin Liskowitz 9th on 36 points, with then Regan Mitchell rounding out your top 10 on 29. And the Sprint Cup standings, and I believe these are wrong because they're exactly the same as the overall standings, but I believe it's Prendergast and Erchan both equal on 43 points. Matteo Blotto's on 40 points, with Sebastian Wunsch in 4th on 37. And then you've got Callum Crutz, Michel Rodriguez, Fabio Ballet, Kamal Naui, Erwin Liskowitz, and Luca Fingard in the BMW rounding out the top 10. So the order's correct. The points on the right, unfortunately, were not on that instance. So Nick did an amazing job right up until that last graphic there. So apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. But luckily, my memory did help us out a little bit with at least remembering the top 4. But yeah, it is pretty crazy because Erchan missed the last couple of rounds and was like, oh, I'm not going to win the sprint championship surely, even if I come back having missed a race. And then suddenly he's like, oh, I'm still equal in the lead in the sprint championship with Prendergast. So Prendergast's tough run last time out of Monza certainly helped him. But anyway, so we've got some very tight standings up and down the grid, Caitlin, and Fuji should be a really, really interesting circuit, of course. Of course, I think maybe a little bit overshadowed by Suzuka these days, but Fuji has an amazing history in real life motorsport, and not just for endurance racing, but also a single-seaters as well, with a Formula 1 World Championship visiting there for the past 50 years, haven't they?
Yeah, I was actually talking about Fuji the other day with one of my teammates, Charlie Bennick. She was saying that Fuji, well, she was saying exactly the same thing as you, to be honest, that Fuji is a little bit overshadowed by Suzuka, but that actually it's probably a better circuit. Controversial, I know, and they're both great in their own right. They're very, very different circuits. Of course, Fuji has a much longer straight, much more overtaking opportunities. You've got that hard braking zone down into turn 1, and then the first sector of the course you can do nearly flat out, potentially flat out in a hypercar. Your turn 2 left-hander, turn 3 right-hander. I think it technically counts as turns 4 and 5 because there are a couple of little kinks that count as corners that shouldn't. But yeah, beautiful circuit. I personally really, really enjoy racing this one. And I think, whoa, there's a big crash coming into pit lane from Erwin Liskowitz. That was quite something. And as we're about to get going with qualifying, let's hope that they can get on top of those problems. I guess practice is the time you want to do something like that, Ed.
I think Erwin, after having missed the last race, just wanted to be on stream, so there we go. He's always does these unconventional strategies, Erwin Liskowitz, the Polish driver, and sometimes they work, like Sebring, he was actually able to get onto the podium by being the first to switch to wet tyres when it rained as well. So yeah, he certainly had some stand-up performances. Did take his first podium in the endurance race at Circuit de la Sarre after 2.4 hours at Le Mans earlier this season as well. So yeah, Erwin has had a fair bit to shout about at different points this season. So just a reminder of the format. The GT3 cars will be let out of the pit lane first for 15 minutes, and then the final 10 minutes of the session will be taken up by the Hypercars, qualifying for the overall pole position then. No sign of rain then as our GT3 field exits the pit lane, and you've got to think that this one is really going to be down to it's Prendergast versus Wunsch, surely, as it has been pretty much the last couple of rounds in this sort of fight for pole position. I think and Fabian Ballet, though, was able to steal pole from all of them at Monza before, unfortunately, being disconnected about 20-30 minutes into the race while leading Seb Wunsch quite convincingly. So both him and Prendergast did have a lot of horrific bad luck at Monza, but especially Ballet losing, I think, 2 or 3 laps before he could get back into the server. And weirdly, on stream, we saw him in like a Porsche 911 safety car when he got back into the race. So that's sort of a little bit of a quirk of Le Mans Ultimate there, that he didn't know what car to put him in. When he came back, he didn't recognize Fabian. But yeah, Fabian Ballet, I think, will be very, very eager to strike back. So we're on board with Seb Wunsch at the moment, and that's one of the McLarens. It's not Prendergast, it's one of the possibly could be Regan Mitchell or Callum Cripps just ahead then of Wunsch here. But yeah, Seb Wunsch, now he's finally in the lead of the championship. You've got to think he's riding the crest of a wave at the moment, and he's just got to keep that momentum going, doesn't he? Even if he doesn't get on pole in this session, if he can qualify well, then he's looking good to keep that pressure on Prendergast, who, as I said, yet to take a win this season.
Yep, Sebastian Wunsch about to start his first flying lap of the session. Sometimes in GT3 cars it actually takes a couple of laps to get the tyres up to the right temperature to get that fast lap in. I'm not quite sure how Le Mans Ultimate does in terms of that kind of simulation. I have to admit, this is actually the first I've seen of Le Mans Ultimate with how last minute I was brought into this. Your message about, or what you said just now about how sometimes when a driver joins in after disconnecting, they show up as being in the safety car. It reminds me of a GT3 race on R-Factor 2 that I commentated a good few years ago, where I was brought in. Ooh. Whoa, someone having a big spin up ahead. Who's that potentially? Going off the road. Anyway, okay, well, it was Mitchell Rodriguez. I'll quickly finish what I was saying. It was a GT3 race at Bathurst, and I joined in halfway through the race. Didn't even have time to download the skins or anything like that, and as a result, every car showed up as a Renault Clio, and this was obviously a GT3 race at Bathurst, and just seeing 24 or so Renault Clios just darting around Bathurst like fleas was absolutely incredible, and I wish that we could see stuff like that a bit more often. But yeah, little bit silly. Back to the
there
action.
are mods for that, Caitlin. Don't worry.
Probably, yeah, but not that fast. You can drive a Renault Clio at Bathurst, but not at 200 miles per hour. But anyway, Kieran Prendergast here in his McLaren. McLarens and Ferraris seem to be the most successful, most competitive, most popular cars here in the championship so far. Although we did just see that spin, of course, from Mitchell Rodriguez.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because at Le Mans, Prendergast was constantly moaning that Ferrari was so much better in terms of like the first sector, the Mulsanne straight. The McLaren had decent straight line speed, but once you got to sort of Mulsanne corner, so through Indianapolis and Mulsanne corner onwards, is 139.2. That's a really, really good marker that Prendergast has laid down there, and he seems very, very intent then on taking pole position. But yeah, Prendergast felt that Seb Wunsch had a big advantage in that Ferrari. That was why in that endurance race at Le Mans, Seb Wunsch decided to pit early for like a tyre change actually, rather than trying to double stint the tyres, whereas Prendergast and Liskowitz tried to double stint, and Seb Wunsch was basically able to breeze around the outside of both of them in the end, made it look relatively easy, although Prendergast put up a bit of a fight trying to hold on to the lead as long as he could then. But yeah, 7/10 is Prendergast's advantage over Wunsch, and that's certainly good for the man looking to get those 2 points he needs back in the championship lead. Then is now Arda Ercan, the Turkish driver, on his return. Goes second fastest, splits the pair of them, just a tenth and a half then exactly behind Prendergast there. And for Ercan, who of course is equal with Prendergast in the lead of the sprint championship, there is prize money for both of our championships. This is really, really important for him, as South Africa's Zach Vermaak goes third fastest. Vermaak impressed in qualifying at Monza on his return there, and while his defensive driving has been a bit over-aggressive in places, I think it's fair to say, he's certainly put the can among the pigeons. So it's great to see someone in the BMW actually really putting a challenge to the Ferraris and McLarens, which tend to be the favoured cars in this championship.
Yeah, 3.5 tenths of a second faster than our championship leader as well. Very impressive. I'm also impressed by Arda Ercan, one of the most versatile racers that I've ever had the pleasure of commentating. I've seen him racing single-seaters, I've seen him racing prototypes, and now of course GTs, and he seems to be equally competitive whatever he ends up racing. So Arda Ercan definitely one to look out for as we're drawing to the latter stages of the GT3 segment of qualifying. Callum Cripps setting his first flying lap, goes fourth position, 3.5 tenths off the overall leader as we stand. Gets a nice dose of BMW slipstream down the straight, and that should help him if he's going for another lap. Talking of another lap, out onto track comes the championship leader Sebastian Wunsch, and he will complete an outlap before going for another timed run.
And look who's just come out of the pits behind him. It's Prendergast. Prendergast is shadowing him, trying to keep the pressure up. I love this from Kieran Prendergast. The man, of course, was Ercan pumps in a fantastic time, 1:39.258. That's 14 thousandths quicker than Prendergast there. So really, really making up the time, I think, the last couple of sectors. Zach Van Mack has gone purple in the middle sector as well. Can he get himself... Oh, I was thinking he might be able to get himself onto the second row at least here, but just half a second lost in the final sector alone there. So clearly going through at 100R, the hairpin, 300R, and Dunlop. I think those are the corners that make up the middle sector. Zach Van Mack has actually found something in that BMW that the Ferraris and McLaren runners are yet to do so as well. So that's a really, really interesting sign going into the race as well for these guys in GT3, where the differences are going to be very, very pretty pronounced in Hypercar, but also in GT3 as well, the characteristics. Because the cars are a bit slower, they've got less sort of grip and downforce, essentially. The differences I find are a little bit more pronounced than some of the Hypercars. We can maybe set your car up a little bit differently to sort of counterweight them a bit easier.
Luca Thingard about to improve his own lap, and there's that BMW slipstream I was telling you about that puts Cripps to the top of the times. Fantastic stuff from Callum Cripps, using the situation he found himself in to his advantage and going to the top by 0.04 of a second. And that means that the top three are now separated by just over 0.5 of a second as it stands. This is very close stuff, with just 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Here comes Kieran Prendergast coming up to the line himself, and I believe he's just starting a lap here, so no time to be set this time around. But we know from what we've seen from him so far this session that he could challenge for the pole position. There's that first corner, there's that little kink that controversially counts as the second corner. I really don't think it's much of a corner at all. Here's that turn 3, you see the nose of the car dip down, so he was on the brakes. In a single seater you don't necessarily have to brake there, but of course not quite so much frontal downforce on these McLaren GT3 cars, or the GT3 cars in total. But Ed, 0.2 of a second up in the first sector. This is looking very promising for the McLaren driver.
Yeah, Prendergast has got it really, really hooked up through that first sector especially. Let's see how he handles into Dunlop, the sort of tight right-hander hairpin essentially into the 11 and 12 chicane then. The brakes are glowing orange then as he gets it turned in, and he's got to almost fight the McLaren a little bit here on exit, keep it within the track limits just about, and he's 300ths then down on his best lap here, so it's not an improvement in the middle sector, so it's all going to come down to this final sector. But it's Seb Wunsch that's going faster than anybody through the first two sectors then towards, out of the final corner, he comes through Panasonic, and now it's a long run. Nothing you can do now except keep your foot to the floor and hope you get to the timing line as soon as possible. Is Seb Wunsch going to get himself onto provisional pole position? No, it's fourth. He lost a load of personal best in the final sector, but it wasn't good enough for more than fourth position. Can Prendergast do it? Yes, he can. Pole position for Prendergast. 2 attempts clear of Callum Cripps, his old friend and sparring partner. Cripps, who of course got so close to victory at Monza, was 9/10 shy of Seb Wunsch. Now he's going to be 2 places ahead of him, at least on the grid then, as we see the final couple of laps being completed now, I believe. So Zach Van Mack and Erchan, probably the two to watch here. Van Mack looking good in terms of personal bests here. Another strong middle sector, but this final sector was really lost time before Caitlin, and the BMW clearly just a little bit tentative, maybe some inexperience showing from Zach Van Mack, who of course, like a lot of these drivers in fact, is relatively new to Le Mans Ultimate and to sim racing. He's only been in it for about a year or so previously, but he's got a little bit of a toe from, I think, Erchan ahead of him. So he's got to hope that Erchan goes to the line and not to the pits then, as Erchan crosses the line. And I think did he just get in before the 15-minute mark?
I don't think he did. I think he
there's still 5 minutes in the session, isn't there? There's still 5 minutes, because I think it's the final 10 minutes that's the Hypercars. Although I forget the exact timing. I think it's either 10 minutes or 12 minutes for the Hypercars. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, a very, very exciting end to GT3 qualifying, and I think that really... it's really boding well for the Hypercars as well to have an equally close fight for pole position. I imagine it's difficult to really deny Simoncic then. Looks like Erchan is going for a really quick lap here. 4 thousandths quicker than Prendergast in the first sector, but it's neck and neck, nip and tuck between the two of them, Caitlin.
Prendergast just improved by another 2/10. He's 4/10 of a second up from anyone else. We had a very close session up until the very late stages, and we could still have a close session if these other drivers are able to put in a better lap. I was under the impression that they were getting basically a virtual checkered flag at the 15-minute mark, but I have to admit, this is, like I said, this is the first time I've seen this series, so I'm not entirely sure exactly what the timings are. But yeah, very impressive lap there for Prendergast. So much quicker than anyone else, and this isn't a particularly long lap, so 4/10 of a second. I'm not quite sure where you find that. The lap before, it was the braking zone down to turn 1 where he seems to have gained the most. That's where you gain all of that time in the first sector. And into the pits comes Erkan, so yes, I believe he did get the checkered flag that time around. And Zach Vermaak is going to complete a lap.
Yeah, here we go then, Vermaak in 8th at the moment, but again, not the best final sector in the world. So 1:39.4, that's not going to be good enough to do better than 8th then. So Vermaak, who was mixing it with some of the front runners early doors in the session, is now sort of mired in the bottom end of the top 10. It's kind of a, I don't want to say Noah's Ark, but it's sort of one after the other. We've got McLaren of Prendergast, Ferrari of Wunsch, McLaren of Krups, Ferrari of Ercan, McLaren of Ballet, Ferrari of Liskowitz, your top 6 then, and then the McLaren of Rodriguez as well. So our top 7 is the Ferrari McLaren Tango, essentially. But yeah, Seb Wunsch did also improve on his last lap there, I think, to just jump Callum Cripps in the order as well. So I think that's a really, really exciting top 5, actually. Prendergast, Wunsch, Cripps, Ercan, Ballet. I think they could all be really, really evenly matched. But Prendergast, that 138.7 is definitely him making a statement, Caitlin. He really, really wants that first win and wants to sort of retake control of the GT3 Championship.
Yeah, it's like Formula One at the end of last year. McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren, Ferrari. But yeah, Prendergast, fantastic pole position. That is a statement lap that he didn't need to do. I mean, his previous best lap would also have been enough for pole. So I think that's really a statement lap from Prendergast that he means business, and I think he's going to be very difficult to beat over the course of today. But we now prepare for the Hypercar qualifying session. I think it's 10 minutes. When you see the clock tick to 10 minutes, they're allowed to go out onto the track, and that is going to be the big show, because that's what we're going to see as they come to the line, the very front of the grid, and the fastest cars in action here today.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be exciting to watch then. So let's just go very quickly through the 13 GT3 qualifiers. Kieran Prendergast on pole position from Sebastian Wunsch. That's our 2 title protagonists. Callum Cripps is in 3rd ahead of Arda Ercan, who's equal with Prendergast in the sprint championship lead, of which this is around. Fabian Ballet only 5th this time, with Liskowitz 6th. Rodriguez 7th. Zach Vermaak 8th. Louis Gaspar is 9th. Valtteri Maninen is 10th in the Corvette. Then it is Regan Mitchell 11th. Luca Fingard 12th. And Marcus Crawford bringing up the rear, just 2.5 seconds in a rear. So Marcus sort of cutting that gap to the front of the field every round he does. So he's gaining confidence all the time, is Marcus Crawford, the Canadian, which is great to see then, as Jene Simoncic leads the field at the exit of the pit lane, waiting to be released. And I think that's quite ominous. Braden always, I think, somewhat affectionately made a bit of a Murray Walker-esque blunder and called Jene Simoncic the pole sister at the first round of the season. So that's just what we call him now. Everyone else is a pole sitter, but Jene is the pole sister. So this looks like that BMW V8 hybrid is looking very, very intent on taking another pole position. You see Hoyer in the other BMW is one of the few that can really stop him in potentially this qualifying session and the championship as well, Caitlin, as they get released for their outlaps.
All right, out we go then. BMW leading us away just as they are in the championship. I noticed that the top 2 are the BMWs and then nobody else at all. So not the most popular car, but they've been taken by some of the best drivers here, Jene Simoncic and of course Michi Hoyer, 2 drivers who I'm intimately familiar with from their R-Factor 2 exploits. And this is Jene Simoncic, who we are watching in the BMW M Team WRT number 20. And a very distinctive car, of course, massive front air intakes. That's to help cooling and thus reliability over the course of a 24-hour race. It's not the fastest hypercar out there, at least not in the real world from what we've seen, but was going great guns at Daytona a couple of weeks ago. Of course, that's the Daytona 24 hours rather than the 500 that's happening tonight. A little bit of twitchy moment for a Cadillac behind, but that's okay. They're just trying to get heat into the tyres at this point. You don't have to worry about losing lap time when you're on an outlap because you are not being timed. But just one more corner to go in Jernej Simoncic's lap, and then he will be able to start the clock and see exactly what he's got around this Fuji circuit.
Yep, so Jernej then he's been in this situation before where he knows there's a championship on the line and he's got to nail a brilliant qualifying lap. But yeah, as it goes towards Daichi, the first corner at the end of this straight in 7th gear at nearly 250 kilometers per hour, all the way down to about 75 as he goes through the corner in first gear then, and then has to accelerate or uphill all the way through to the Coca-Cola corner, the left-hander of turn 3, and now into 100R, which is a fantastic. It's almost great to see. Suzuka has 130R, doesn't it? And we have 100R followed by 300R, which is turn 9. But in between is the hairpin here at turn 6, and Simoncic just looks really at home in this BMW after 5 rounds, 3 of which he has won, it must be said. He just seems more and more at one with this car. The only time he's been beaten this season, it was by Marocek, actually, in a thrilling finish, it must be said, at Interlagos, where the Lamborghini just held on, and that was the day where all the hypercars, especially the Cadillac, seemed to be overheating, and Simoncic decided on the final lap, on the run to the line, to just turn the engine mix to full, and the car was like smoking across the line, very nearly exploded. So it was literally a win it or bin it scenario. Unfortunately, Simoncic just missing out by a couple of hundredths of a second in the end, but it doesn't really get too much closer than that. And Marocek put in an absolutely stellar defensive drive as well for that money. But anyway, out of the final corner he's come towards the line. This will be the benchmark time that all the others will have to beat. It's going to be a 1:31.5 then. We wait now to see, actually. Simoncic was taking it fairly easy then, so it looks like Jules Neal has set the provisional pole time 1:27.5 with Fabio Rigoletto all in the almost identical Cadillac, the Wheatland Racing 311, just missing out by 36 thousandths of a second.
And then running wide immediately at turn 1. I hope those cars, the 311s, don't end up starting next to each other on the grid, because that could be very confusing heading down to turn 1. But yeah, a very wide spread of lap times after that first lap. You certainly would not expect Jernej Simoncic to be at the bottom of the times. So I think he was just taking it steady, getting some heat into the tyres and getting the car up to speed. But yeah, this does of course mean that we probably haven't seen the best from anyone in this session just yet. Simoncic, yeah, that's much more on the pace as he comes through the middle sector. That target time is the best time overall, not his personal best. So this will already be several seconds up on the lap that he set before. It's not the fastest that we've seen overall, but this is easily going to be enough to put him 3rd position if he keeps, well, runs a little bit wide at the final corner. I saw you said that track limits are quite strict here, so I'm not sure if... well, it looks like that lap's going to stand because he crosses the line and he does go 3rd. And yeah, like I said, quite convincingly in 3rd position because he's 0.2 of a second faster than Bueno as it stands. And Michi Hoyer goes 5th. Okay, so it looks as if I'm taking over for a little bit, but that's okay. We've got 5 minutes left in the session, and Rigoletto sets the fastest time of everyone by 0.3 of a second as it stands. Bueno goes 2nd now, so Simoncic and Hoyer drop to 5th and 6th in the BMWs. Amos Larito crosses the line, goes P11 as it stands. There are, of course, 13 cars out there on track right now, and I was going to say how the order was standing, but to be honest, it's changing so quickly that it doesn't look to be particularly representative even now. There's Julian Guerin in one of the Ferraris, one of 2 Ferraris out there. Shame, of course, we don't have David Marocek today because he had the only Lamborghini in the field, and it's always nice to see a variety of cars especially since custom liveries have not yet been introduced to Le Mans Ultimate. So when you have a grid where people are taking the same cars, such as Quidel and Gergo, who have both got the number 3 Cadillac, and Brew as well has the number 3 Cadillac, I see, and then of course Grigoletto and Neal both in the 311 Cadillacs. When you have situations like that, it's always nice to see cars that stand out, such as the Lamborghini LM63 that David Mrozek's been racing. But he's not here today. Doesn't look like we have any unique manufacturers on the grid, because we have more than one: BMW, Porsche, Cadillac and Ferrari. And talking of Ferrari, Marco Buono improves his lap again to go within 0.2 of a second of Grigoletto at the top of the times, but not quite able to overcome him. Now obviously it's only a 1 hour race today, a sprint race, so qualifying does absolutely matter, a lot more than it would do in an endurance race, and a lot more than it would do if, say, the World Endurance Championship are racing here in real life. They tend to do 6-hour races or longer, and over the course of that amount of time pretty much anything can happen. But in the space of an hour, you definitely need to have that track position. You need to get that early on, otherwise you will be massively on the back foot. So this is important times. Flashing of the lights there from Jules Neal, and he twitches around coming into the braking zone. Not sure what that was about, because there's no one else ahead of him on track. Oh, there was someone else ahead of him on track, so I think he was probably just letting that Porsche driver know that he was coming through, and ended up making a little bit of a mistake in turn 1 anyway. I'm not sure this is going to be a competitive lap time from Neal, especially considering what he's already done. And as you can see, he's lost 0.3 of a second, but 0.003 of a second is now all that separates the leaders, because Jernej Simoncic goes to 2nd position. We've caught him a little bit late as he rounds turn 1, and it looks as if he's backed off the pace because he was a little bit wide there. And Simoncic is 2nd for the time being, but very, very close. But remember, we saw the times get so close in the LMGT3 class as well, before they were immediately smashed due to that very quick lap from the pole sitter towards the end of the session. Orito now goes 4th. Welcome to everyone in the YouTube chat. I'm keeping half an eye on it as well. We've got James Ho in the chat, we've got Prentasini, we've got Artem SH, we've got Logie. Quick correction for something Ed said earlier, apparently Marcus Crawford is from the USA rather than Canada, so apologies about that, on Ed's behalf of course. Neal goes up to 4th position. I thought he was already in 4th position, maybe. Oh, I think he must have got something out of that lap actually, because yeah, that was an improvement from Jules Neal, despite the mistake he made in the first sector. Well done to him for keeping that pace up for the rest of the lap. Michi Hoyt, P11, we'd expect him to be much, much higher than that, but he's still got a little bit of time left in the qualifying session. Judging by where he is on the track, he might actually be able to get around for another lap, but it's going to be close actually. He's about 1.5 down in the first sector. You see the delta times on the bottom right. That is of course to the overall leader rather than their previous best lap time. 126.909 is the lap from Grigoletto as it stands. It's a Ferrari, I think that was Buono, just getting out of the way, making sure he's not holding up Michi Hoyt, who will get another lap because we've got 20 seconds to go till the checkered flag comes out. And once that checkered flag comes out, you are allowed to finish the lap that you're on. But where does this lap put Michi Hoyt? Does it move him up the order? It should do. It puts him 4th, so that would be the 2nd row of the grid. As it stands, Marco Buono also is able to start another flying lap. So here we go then. The checkered flag is out, and it is crunch time for these drivers who are on their flying laps. This is the last opportunity that they will get. And Jernej Simoncic has not been gaining. He is down. He will not improve on this lap. Marco Buono is off the road. He will not improve on this lap. So that just leaves a couple more drivers. I think that probably means Grigoletto is safe in pole position, but we'll have to wait and see what the likes of Jules Neal can do. He's nearly 0.2 down in the first sector. I think Grigoletto has this signed and sealed at this point in time. And Jules Neal rounding the rest of the lap. I've just seen Ed Hunter is back, so we're right at the end of the session, Ed. We've got brake ducts glowing, as you can see on the front of Jules Neal's car. They're really pushing, but it looks as if Grigoletto has qualifying wrapped up, because Simoncic and Buono are not improving. But I tell you what, Michi Hoyer's close. I'm sorry, looks like I've written off Michi Hoyer too early. Here he comes out of the final corner. What can he do in the BMW, Ed?
Well, he's certainly going to show you the folly of counting him out, that's for sure, as he comes towards the line now. Will this be a good enough final sector to get onto the second row? At the very least, he's fifth at the moment. He goes third past this, jumps Marco De Buono, 57 thousandths off pole position. So look at that as Jules Neal locks up in the pits, abandons that final run then. And so our top three within less than about half a tenth of a second of each other there. So Michi Hoyer and Simoncic will be so frustrated, especially Simoncic missing out on pole by 3 thousandths of a second. But Fabio Grigoletto, that's his first pole position in the VMS Pro Championship, and the Italian can feel justifiably proud. The Tatum Esports driver, a milestone result for him. Remember, he's been on the front row a couple of times, led the endurance race at the first ever VMS Pro round at Spa. But he's never taken victory before, Caitlin, and this could be a big opportunity for him, not just to leap up in the championship, but also to take that first ever win against some spectacularly strong competition in Simoncic and Hoyer here.
Yeah, absolutely. He's only fourth in the Hypercar standings as it is, but a fantastic lap from Grigoletto. It takes a lot to beat these two BMW drivers, but a very close qualifying lineup. And I tell you what, that is going to be the class to look out for. LMGT3 as well always provides some action, but look how close they are, with 3 drivers separated by just over half a tenth of a second. A quarter of a second separates the top 4, and 1 second separates pretty much the entire grid, with the exception of Gogo in 13th position. But yeah, what a session we've just seen, and I am looking forward to this race.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to hear that then. So, as we wait now for the organisers to set up the grid, we can at least go through all of our rows of the grid and see where everyone stacks up. So, the front row will be Fabio Grigoletto on pole for the first time from Jerne Simoncic, looking to get in front in both championships. Michi Hoyer will be starting the grid third, with Marco De Bruno alongside him on row 2. Jules Neal lines up at the head of row 3 with Amos Lorito, who we fought so hard with at Monza last time out alongside him. Row 4 is made up of Bert Knops, his best quality of the season, with Julian Gurin alongside him in the Ferrari. Aurelian Bru and Daniele Farinelli are the 2 Cadillacs making up row 5. That is our top 10 then, with David Levy in 11th, with Gaetan Quidel alongside him on row 6. Clement Gagord makes up the back of the Hypercar field. Then it's Prendergast on pole, of course, in 14th position overall, with Sebastian Wunsch and Callum Cripps right behind him on row 8. Row 9 is Turkey's Arda Ercan, with Fabian Ballet, the German, alongside him in the McLaren. Row 10, Erwin Liskowitz has got Michel Rodriguez for close company at the start of this one. Then it's Zach Vermaak, the South African, just ahead of Louis Gaspar in the Ferrari. That's row 11. Row 12 is the Corvette of Valtteri Maninen, and then Regan Mitchell. Lots of ground for Mitchell to make up here today, with Luca Fingard just behind him on row 13, and he is joined by Marcus Crawford. And I do apologize to Marcus, because I did say he was Canadian earlier. I saw his name listed with a Canadian flag next to it in result sheets, but I was correct in the chat. He is, in fact, American. So big apologies there. Braden would be schooling me at the moment if he were here. So on that. But anyway, there. Caitlin, this is a big opportunity for Grigoletto and for Kim Prendergast to take their first wins. But Seb Wunsch in the GT3 class and Arda Ercan, for that matter, too, in their Ferraris, they are going to be pushing him all the way. And then Grigoletto is the real underdog story, isn't he? Being able to jump ahead of Simoncic and Hoyer. And that's going to be really fascinating to see. Can he hold on at the start here? And if so, how long?
Absolutely. So with 15 seconds on the countdown, could you please talk me through how this start's going to work? Do we get a rolling start? Or
it is a rolling start, yes. So,
and do we get a formation lap?
Not a full formation lap, so they will go about halfway down the straight once they get just past the start-finish line. The green flag will be shown, and the pack will be released. The GT3 field and the Hypercar field will be released at the same time. it has led to some chaos. At Le Mans, some of the Hypercars didn't set a quality lap at all because they didn't get a clean lap in within the track limits. So they had to start behind the GT3 class, which was a little bit chaotic, but luckily everyone got through mostly unscathed, although Grigoletto did spin on that occasion. Let's not remind him of that because that led to an amazing fight back though all the way through the Hypercar field to fourth then, as the field is going to be released in the next couple of seconds then as they come towards the start finish line. Simic looking intent on the left-hand side. Marco De Bueno right behind him. Michi Hoyer right behind Grigoletto then as the green flag is out. We are underway here for the penultimate sprint race of the season at Fuji, and it's Michi Hoyer that makes a lightning getaway past Simic. They're trying to go free wide into the first corner at Daichi. Marco De Bueno trying to go around the outside as well. Loader breaks deep and just about holds onto the lead from Michi Hoyer. Now Simic has got that number 50 Ferrari. Close as they go towards turn 3. Can De Bueno go up the inside, get the Ferrari onto the podium, and Simic, who looks so in control so far this season, now finds himself absolutely swamped by De Bueno, and now Jules Neal has joined the party as well. Caitlin, look how defensive Simic has to get into the hairpin here.
Yeah, that was not a good start from Simoncic. He got rather mugged into turn 1 by Bueno. There's a yellow flag, so hopefully everyone is okay down at the back of Hypercar or in the GT3 field. I see Nops dropping back, and there he is. So Nops has had a spin, and whether or not there was contact, we're not sure. Unfortunately, we can't see a replay, so we'll have to ask someone about that later on as Neil and Narito swap places. And here we see, is that the lead of the LMGT3 class? This is Urchan challenging Prendergast, and there's a spin in the background for a BMW.
It's Zach Vermaak that's dropped it in the background there, as you see. I think that's just by Callum Kritzer under attack from one of the Ferraris as well. I believe that's Ballet Liskevitz, sorry, that they're doing battle then for a 17th position overall in the order. It's about 5th or 6th in class. But yeah, Urchan trying to attack up the inside yet again into the final corner, and that's Seb Bunch trying to go right up the inside of, I think that's Callum Cripps, and Cripps goes wide coming out of Panasonic, and that gives track position to Seb Bunch. But on the long run down the start-finish straight, it's going to be Callum Cripps that is going to try and go around the outside to get back in front of the Ferrari here, and Callum Cripps could really help his friend and countryman Kieran Prendergast out by holding up Seb Bunch as much as possible. But Bunch has got the inside into the first hairpin break, super deep, it's too deep, up the inside goes Callum Cripps, and there's all sorts of carnage going on right behind as Bert Knox is trying to make his way back through the GT3 field.
So Knops coming through and hopefully does it all nice and cleanly, because these two are battling in their own little race. They won't want to give up too much time, and it is of course the response. And around, and a great save actually, really good to get on the brakes so quickly and hold it, but his tyres will be crying enough. But yeah, as I was saying, it's the responsibility of the faster car to find its way through cleanly, so these two don't have to do anything but remain predictable as the Hypercar of Knops comes through, probably with a slightly elevated heart rate to what he otherwise would have had. But yeah, I'm very impressed by the racecraft of Grigoletto at the very start of that race. It looked as if Michi Hoyer had got the lead easy peasy down into turn 1. He had a rocket start, but Grigoletto was just able to hold on the inside and rather unexpectedly popped straight back through when Hoyer was covering off Simoncic and Bueno, and Grigoletto now leads by 1.5 seconds as they break for turn 1 on this third lap of the race. And yeah, very impressive start and very well deserved to be in the lead in these early stages.
Yep, certainly. There's still quite a way to go. 56 minutes, and Michi Hoyer has certainly not given up. As for that matter, has the NAC kitchen. As we see Louis Gaspard under attack from the Corvette of Valtteri Manninen, and Manninen with Luca Fingard for close company behind as well. And then I think it's Regan Mitchell. So we've got a four-way fight here to get into the top 20 overall order. And Gaspard finds the Corvette sliding up the inside, and so's the BMW. Fingard, it's got very messy. Around goes Valtteri Manninen. Oh dear, Louis Gaspard almost going off track with him as well, but he just got tagged around there. That was just a messy racing incident between pretty much all four of them there, Kate.
Yeah, a little bit clumsy. I'm just having a look back on the YouTube stream to see if I can work out what happened. We don't have replay, so that's the next best thing. See, the trouble with the Corvette having that spin is that it shouldn't really have lasted that long, but they were just pushing him down the straight. Of course, the BMW and the Ferrari both getting into the Corvette, and the unfortunate Valtteri Maninen was rather dumped off of his line there. No real fault of his own, he got hit from behind. But yeah, we're looking back now at the Hypercar race. Bueno holding fourth, but Neil is slipstreaming his way up to the back of him. He's within a quarter of a second. That's dive bomb territory heading down into turn one. But I think he knows better than to do something a little bit risky in these early stages. He'll get better opportunities than that if he just holds firm.
Yep, certainly. We saw Neil have a great battle with Dan Horacek and the man behind him, Amos Lorito, last time out at Monza. Neil, still, you know, in his late teens, a driver for G League Esports. The Frenchman has really impressed this season. Him and Grigoletto, I think, have been two of the standout Cadillac drivers, although Neil, as a result, have not been quite as strong as Grigoletto's in midweek. He's had some fantastic overtakes, put on some spectacular moves, and certainly stood out so far this season. Of course, unfortunately, at Monza, he then spun out of fifth position and then sort of trundled home in, I think, 11th or 10th, essentially. Didn't get too many points. But yeah, Marco De Bueno, another driver who, of course, got a top 5, I believe, at Le Mans, if I'm not mistaken, just behind Grigoletto, another Tatum Esports driver from Italy, looking to get some big points because Marco De Bueno is quite low down in the top 10 at the moment, instead of 7th, 8th, 9th so territory in the overall standings. So he really needs a big result here, cannot afford to slip up and let Jules Neal through. But also, you can see Simičić right in front of him on a day when maybe the BMWs are not looking quite as strong as they usually do. That air of invincibility isn't quite with Simičić at the moment because Grigoletto was able to just about nip in front of them in qualifying. And now I think Marco De Bueno is maybe going to be excited here because he knows a chance to finish on the overall podium would be a big opportunity here. And Jone Simičić, rather than fighting for the lead, he seems to sort of be settling in for third. And it's Boyer and Grigoletto that are just escaping from the rest of the Hypercar pack right now.
Yeah, Kastrek in the YouTube chat was saying that was a big lap from Marco De Bueno in qualifying, and indeed it was. The driver only 10th position overall in the championship, put his car 4th position and less than a quarter of a second, less than 0.2 of a second off the overall leader. He has a genuine chance of a podium, maybe even better today if he just keeps it clean. In Neil's defence, we were just talking, of course, about Neil, who's running in 5th. It was very wet last time out at Monza, and that's always difficult. But yeah, he did have a couple of big spins in that race, which dropped him down the order from where he maybe should have been on pace. Zach Vermaak is recovering now after a little incident earlier on, and rejoins in 9th position in the LMGT3 class. And in the pits now is the Corvette of Valtteri Maninen. We saw him having a spin a couple of laps ago, potentially some damage or at least some ruined tyres.
Yeah, definitely. It was quite a dramatic camera angle it cut to as well, right before that being spun around there at the exit of turn 1 into turn 2. And yeah, Zach Vermaak fighting away with Michel Rodriguez. Rodriguez, who said that he was qualifying on old tyres, and that was why he struggled a lot in the qualifying session compared to some of the other McLarens. But of course, he's fresh off that first podium at Monza, where he again fought with Zach Vermaak. Louis Gaspar isn't too far behind either, having survived the incident with Valtteri Maninen and company, and then Luca Fingard just ahead of them as well then. So yeah, Vermaak, we know he's got the raw speed here to be a bit of a thorn in the side of these drivers, but needs to stay out of trouble if he wants to get some decent points out of this sprint race at Fuji. The other thing to keep in mind, especially always we see now Zach Vermaak up the inside then at the final corner on Rodriguez. Rodriguez leaves the door open and has to go a little bit wide on exit, so that's Zach Vermaak through into 8th position there. That was a good spatial awareness. He made his intentions very clear, and the other driver had no option but to give one.
I think Erchan's side by side with Cripps now. I just saw on the timing screen they were in the act of swapping places. And Cripps is second, so he has indeed got through on Arda Erchan into turn 1. We didn't see it, but we could see it on the timing screen, and Callum Cripps is through. That's a move he can absolutely make, because that straight there is maybe a kilometre and a half long. I'm not sure of the actual length, but it's one of the longest that you will find on any calendar, of course with the exception of the Mulsanne that these drivers would have had to tackle earlier on in the season at Le Mans. But yes, Erchan would have just been slipstreamed and then demoted into turn 1 through no fault of his own, and a good move from Callum Cripps, who will now set off after Prendergast, who has a 4-second lead in these early stages.
Yeah, what I was going to say just before Vermac put that move on and then Callum Cripps got up to second was Jene Simicic's stream. I think his time of his race that you can watch as well alongside of, if you're so inclined, is titled something like "Fuel is Expensive," and then it's 60 minutes of Fuji. So, of course, the fuel tank in Le Mans Ultima in both the GT3s and the Hypercars, well, especially the Hypercars, the GT3s can maybe extend slightly longer sometimes. It's about 40 minutes if you go flat out, and if you're saving fuel, you can maybe stretch it to the full hour essentially. But you do have to do a lot of saving. We saw that in Interlagos especially, that in the first half of the race, Simicic was saving and David Marocek disappeared up the road. Then the final half of the race, it was the other way around with Marocek having to do all the fuel saving. So I wonder if Simicic, having learnt from that, is sort of employing a similar strategy behind Hoyer and Rigoletto then, although he's got to be back within 2 seconds of Mitch and Hoyer then. Look how close Sevunch got to the back of Arda Ercan through turn 1 there, but they're not quite able to make the move stick, and now you see Liskovitz with a little bit of damage on the left-hand side of that car. So easy to tell them apart from Ercan then in the other 54, I guess. But yeah, he's been in the wars a little bit already in this race then. And yeah, Sevunch, who had really been hoping to run solidly on the podium and keep Prendergast honest. Now Cripps has just gotten past both him and Ercan, as we see now Grigoletto having to lap the tail end of the GT3 field. This is where he'll really be tested then. He needs to have a lot of spatial awareness here. As he slips up here, Michi Hoyer will be there to take advantage. Look, you can see him scything through the traffic already here, and the GT3 is parting like the Red Sea then as they come towards Dunlop hairpin.
There we go. So through goes Grigoletto, and this is going to be a theme for the rest of the race, having to lap traffic and get through as quickly as you possibly can, and as cleanly as you possibly can as well. I was just having a look at the YouTube chat as well. Someone asking where is David Marocek. Unfortunately, he can't be here today. Oh yeah, Carlos Silva's replied with holidays. I was saying earlier on, Ed, it's a little bit disappointing because with cars looking so similar to each other, say Grigoletto and Neil both in the 311 Cadillac, it's always nice to have a little bit more variety. And there's only one Lamborghini that unfortunately has not turned up today. And there is Marcus Crawford Rodriguez. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of contact with potential Hypercar. He spun around coming out of that final corner. So that's a big shame for Rodriguez, who had just seen Zach Vermac fly past him. Now he's facing the wrong way, as we see now Daniele Farinelli in the single dark blue. Oh, there we go. Quiddell actually getting caught out there. And up the inside goes Julian Gurin in the Ferrari, of course. So Gurin, of course, plenty of top 10 so far this season, now sneaking back into the top 9. Is all Zach Vermac just backing off of the Hypercars to get through there. There's just a line of Cadillacs from 5th all the way through to about 8th now in the Hypercar class. Vermac goes a little bit wide, and Gaspar now tries to get alongside through the hairpin, but has to give way to the BMW there. So Zach Vermac actually just about spotted the Hypercars coming in time, but certainly, yeah, he didn't want to give up track position to Louis Gaspar by backing off before the corner. Decided to do it just in the middle of the corner, which is always a little bit risky, to be honest, but you can understand with that Ferrari over the back of him why he did it.
Yeah, you put on your notes that the real overtaking opportunities here are into the hairpin and down the start-finish straight, but for a Hypercar, that's not good enough. You've got to be able to overtake basically as soon as you catch up to the
Hoyer's right behind
GT3s. And yet this is for the lead, so Hoyer has gained that 1 second that he had, and is going side by side with Grigoletto down the straight for the lead. They've got GT3 traffic coming up. Whoa, banging doors, look at that! And Grigoletto will have the inside. That was very, very close. I know Valentine's Day was recently, but you don't need to literally hold hands. And Grigoletto gets out ahead simply by using the grip of that car on the outside. Hoyer has to slot in behind, but he'll get another opportunity, I'm sure.
Oh! And they go either side of Valtteri Maninen. Grigoletto around the outside. Hoyer has to back off on the inside there. Maninen just could not get out of the way quickly enough. And now Simicic, he is loving this because the two leaders fighting away with each other has allowed him to easily close back in then. And Grigoletto dealing with the pressure extremely well, but Michi Hoyer, there was an opportunity to get through there that just slipped between his fingers like sand in his hands, unfortunately, Caitlin. And as he locks up into Dunlop, and now he's got Jene Simicic all over the back of him. This is not going Michi Hoyer's way so far.
Yeah, and that was Wunsch we just saw in the pits there in the GT3 category, so the championship leader coming into the pits. But we continue to watch this fight between what is now the two BMWs for second position. Of course, they were challenging Grigoletto for the lead just now, but Hoyer, as a result of not quite managing to make that, is on the back of Grigoletto, or being challenged now by Simicic. And I tell you what, I think Hoyer probably could have got through ahead of Grigoletto there at turn 3, but he realised that he'd actually run slightly over the white line to get past that LMGT3, and if he had made the move, I think it would have been an illegal one. So I think he did the right thing by not making that stick. But it does mean he's lost out now, and that he's now under pressure from his BMW rival, Jene Simicic.
Yeah, it certainly would have been incredibly risky, and it's part of the reason why that thrilling finish at Interlagos between Marocek and Simicic. Simicic tried to go around the outside at the Junqiao, the final corner of Dab Marocek, but of course he had to go a little bit sort of off track, and I sort of said it in commentary live at the time, and watching Jene Simicic stream confirmed it that, yeah, he was being told by the game to give the position back because he had sort of made the move off tracks. Oh, Louis Gaspar gets his braking all wrong into the first corner and almost has to avoid the back of Zach Vermaak. That allows Regan Mitchell very, very quickly to get back into the top 7 then in the GD3 class there. So Gaspar lucky escaped that. That could have been a lot worse for him and for Zach Vermaak too, for that matter.
Yeah, I think he was caught off guard by the braking of the BMW. He didn't expect it to slow down quite so much, and I don't think he was going for an overtake or anything like that, but he was kind of forced to go to the left-hand side just to avoid the back of that car. We now look back to the GT3 battle, Cripps versus Erkan for second position. Of course, not too long ago, Sebastian Wunsch would have been quite close to them, but he came into the pits, and I was going to say earlier, I think it was interesting that so many cars pitted towards the end of the race at Monza, because of course it was a wet race, and in the wet you tend to use up a little bit less fuel. So I think the chance of everyone making a pit stop today are actually quite high, especially with this being a power track with a long start-finish straight and the likes. And I'm not sure quite why he pitted so early, whether he had damage or anything like that. But I do think that pit stops are probably going to be something to look out for today.
Yeah, certainly it really depends, because it is quite the ask, even in just an hour-long race, to get the fuel tank to extend by about 20 minutes more, because that extends. It's quite a short lap here at Fuji's, or much like Interlagos too, although not quite as short as Interlagos. But yeah, I think you are on the front for a lot more as well. So it is going to be marginal, especially for the Hypercars. I think the GT3s are probably going to cut their losses a little bit earlier and pit like we've seen Wunsch do. But I suspect there might have been something else that happened to Wunsch, potentially damage, that forced him to come into the pits a bit earlier there. But yeah, certainly if it was just a strategy call, it's certainly a bold one. And yeah, the next 42 minutes, he's got to just hope he's in clear air and can just set really quick lap times and effectively undercut the rest of the podium runners that he was fighting with. But yeah, Prendergast, he won't be worrying about that at all, because he's now got a 5-second buffer to Callum Cripps, who's holding off Arda Ercan brilliantly at the present moment. There he is with just Bert Knops trying to put another lap on him and having to wait his turn to do so. In fact, Kieran Prendergast is about to lap Manninen as well for good measure as well. So yeah, Prendergast, everything is going to plan so far, but we said that before, and then the situation has changed. So no room for complacency. Prendergast has got to keep pushing, has got to manage his resources well to make sure he is not caught wrong-footed, and that he has got a little bit of a buffer in case there's any bit of bad luck, in case a Hypercar decides not to leave a whole lot of room while it laps him, or anything of that nature then. So yeah, he's not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly up here in front in Hypercar, Hoyer is just absolutely got his mirrors full of that BMW art car of Jene Simicic and the Slovenian. Absolutely relentless. All three of them are pulling away well clear of Marco De Bueno. The Ferrari is now having to worry about Jules Neal, who's keeping him very, very close company at the present moment. Yeah, Michi Hoyer and Jene Simicic, this has really been the story of the season, these two fighting away for podium positions. But now Grigoletto, the shoe's on the other foot a little bit here, because now Simicic is fighting away with Hoyer. Grigoletto can now just focus on his own race and build a bit of a gap behind him that he can potentially save fielding later on, or just use to good effect to sort of just get out of the slipstream of both Hoyer and Simoncic. So Fabio Grigoletto is doing absolutely everything right so far. Even when Hoyer is closed in, he has responded brilliantly, hasn't he, Kevin?
Yeah, he has indeed. There's a reason they're still in the same order that they were in at the end of the first lap, and that's just because the drivers in front have defended well, and there haven't been that many mistakes at the front of the Hypercar class. We're now looking a little bit further back in the Hypercar class, the battle for 10th between Clement Giraud and David Levy, and these two, a Cadillac and a Porsche. I always think those two cars are probably the most similar cars to look at in the LMH category. Of course, from behind, I think you can tell the difference. There's a much more prominent shark fin on the Cadillac, a much more sculpted look to the Porsche, but I can't imagine that they handle particularly differently. They certainly both look the part. They're very competitive race cars. And Levy all over the back of Clement Giraud through the tighter, twistier parts of the course. This is not an overtaking opportunity unless you're significantly faster than your opponent, such as being an LMH versus a GT3. This final corner, as we saw earlier, a GT3 car made a move into here. It is an overtaking opportunity sometimes, because you can take a couple of different lines through there, so you can surprise your opponent by doing something different. But the disadvantage of that is that then you have a worse run down the start-finish straight, which is a very, very long straight, and you end up losing speed by the end of it. So not really a place where I would pull an overtake generally, and I think turn 1 is a much better opportunity if you're going to do it, Ed.
Yeah, certainly it's the more obvious standout one. Hoyer is actually starting to fight back against Grigoletto. Maybe it's a bit more traffic. You can tell Fabio Grigoletto, that's the one part where he is just not as experienced at leading the pack. He's good at negotiating traffic when he gets to it, but sort of you do hesitate a bit when you're coasting out to bank his GT3s through the sort of tighter sectors. Liskowicz's car looks more battered and bruised every time I look at it, either side of it, so I don't know what keeps happening to him. Maybe there was contact between him and Seb Funch, but we can only really speculate at this point. But yeah, Liskowicz still getting good tow from the very, very similar Ferrari of Ercan, the 55 rather than the 54, of course. But yeah, Ercan is since Callum Crooks got past, Ercan's not really been making too much forward momentum here, and that's not good news for his sprint championship, because Kieran Prendergast is going to take maximum 25 points out of this one, and looks like Ercan at the moment is only playing for 15, maybe 18 if he can somehow find a way back past Callum Crooks. But now Liskowicz is starting to work against him rather than with him at this phase of the race, as they start to see the leaders escaping in the distance.
Yeah, Prendergast leads by 5.5 seconds here in the LMGT3 category, so that's escaping if ever I've seen it. We're just over 20 minutes into the race now. It's really flying past, and yeah, 5.9 seconds is his gap. Cripps and Ercan still fighting over second position. We're watching Owen Liskowicz as he catches up, or attempts to catch up, and here is that BMW squabble. They're right in the midst of some GT3 traffic, as they'll find himself sporadically over the course of the race now towards the chicane, and I think Hoyer really gained in that little sector there. I think Grigoletto was caught out a bit more by that GT3 traffic, and that does tend to happen because once the leader has kind of prized a gap in the traffic, it's much easier for the cars in second and third to follow their way through. So realistically, the car in front has to do all of the hard work, and that's one of the great things about multi-class racing. It is a bit of an equalizer and keeps the racing close. Now we go onto the straight again, with Hoyer just half a second behind Grigoletto. He won't be going for an overtake this time around, but he's very menacing in the mirrors, and it's all about Grigoletto's resolve now. What's he got in reserve? How can he keep his concentration with such pressure on his tail?
Yeah, the other thing, the problem that Grigoletto's got is he is kind of alone up there. Marco Di Buono is another Tatum esports driver, but he's another like 5 or 6 seconds, 6 seconds exactly in arrears from Simoncic, or Simoncic and Hoyer. They've known each other a long time. They're good friends. They're in a voice call with each other, so they may well be sort of giving each other little hints of where they think Grigoletto's weak at certain parts of the track, where Simoncic reckons Michi Hoyer should attack, and there might be a little bit of not a non-aggression pact, but sort of while we're fighting each other for the championship, but we're also fighting Grigoletto for this race win, and maybe once Fabio is dealt with, then we can go at each other hammer and tongs. But yeah, Michi Hoyer hopes to just get past Grigoletto first, as he tried to do at the start, and he's tried a couple of points in this race to get through and has been thwarted by the Italian in front of him. As now there's a few more GT3 cars. Oh, bit of a tap at the back of Grigoletto from the McLaren, and Fabio has to go completely off track then as he rejoins out of nets turn 15 and into the final corner there. So that was a scary moment there, but Grigoletto survives, at least for the time being. And remember, these Hypercars, of course, have got the virtual energy system that they will be able to deploy compared to some of these GT3s, of course, that are more naturally aspirated. So they're going to be trying to deploy that electrical energy at certain points down the straight from effect there, as up the inside of the 59 McLaren goes Michi Hoyer. He cannot let Grigoletto escape from his clutches then, and then you can just see Jene Simoncic just playing it cool, sticking behind. Once again, Hoyer has to overtake Cannon and through turn 3, and he's not wasting any time this time around, is he, Kate?
Bombs away there through turn 2. Turn 3 as it officially is, but let's face it, it's turn 2. And Michi Hoyer gets through 0.6 of a second behind Grigoletto, losing a little bit of time in the middle sector, but I think that's just the way that the timing works. He'll close up in the braking zone. I don't think the timer takes that into consideration. We've got even more traffic coming up now as we go through the chicane.
Oh, and
Prendergast. Yep, that's the GT3 leader, doing nothing wrong, I should add. He has just as much of a right to be there as the LMHs do, but obviously the LMHs would prefer if he wasn't there, and a little bit of a switchback maneuver from Simoncic is what it takes to get past him. Back onto the straight we go. About 0.8 of a second is the gap between Grigoletto and Hoyer this time around. The top 3, you could throw a blanket over them, and maybe not literally, but look at that.
Quite the blanket, yes. It's a yellow flag somewhere out on track, so there's been trouble a bit further on, but there seems to have cleared, so clearly somebody further down the pack having a moment. Bunch, by the way, since his pit stop, he was about 15 seconds behind Marcus Crawford. He's close to within 8.9, 8.8 or so. So certainly Bunch has got some good pace now, having got that early stop out of the way. So even if he's got a bit more fuel on that car, we could see Seb Bunch become a bit more of a factor in the closing stages if the GT3s start to run out of fuel. Gurin in the 83 Ferrari, the yellow Ferrari, is coming into the pits, so that's going to drop him out of the top 10 then. So that is interesting. So is Julian Gurin struggling on fuel, or is there something else going on at the wheel of that car then, as we see him being serviced now? And yeah, it didn't look particularly damaged early on, unless there was something we missed with that yellow flag. Then as now we cut back to Regan Mitchell trying to hold off Louis Gaspard as he tries to keep Zach Vermack in sight. Then I think Vermack is still chasing down Luca Fingard, who's about 7 seconds up the road. So this is really a fight for, I believe, 5th or 6th in class, essentially, in GT3.
Well, we're nearly halfway through the race now, so I guess Guerin is just splitting the race in 2. But yeah, I expect pretty much everyone will have to make a pit stop, at least in the hypercar class. Obviously GT3s can extend a little bit longer, and you can sometimes do an hour in a GT3 car without pitting. But yeah, I'll stop speculating and call it as it happens, because you can never quite predict what's going to happen in a race where the pit stops are advisory rather than mandatory. Louis Gaspard chasing down Regan Mitchell as Hypercars whiz either side of them. You've got to have your wits about you as a GT3 as well, because yes, it's all about the Hypercars. They have to find a way through. And Arda Erchan is in the pits as well, so also splitting the race in 2. I think the drivers who are pitting around this stage, this would have been their plan right from the beginning of the race. I think drivers who maybe attempt to do the full race and then realise they're not going to make it are going to pit a little bit later on, do a bit of a splash and dash, But for the drivers who are pitting at this point in the race, I think they decided right from the start to split the race in two. And we're watching Sebastian Wunsch now for good reason, because he was close to Arda Ercan before Arda's pit stop. So this is going to show us how they shake out. I think he might just get through here, because they're going to be close down to turn one. There you see Ercan on the pit exit, and Wunsch does go through. So that is what we refer to as the undercut.
Yeah, there we go. So Wunsch was able to set some good laps in clear air to at least jump Arda Ercan for position. It wasn't a huge undercut though. Ercan actually did a good job despite pitting later to come up just behind. And now, of course, he's got much fresher tyres as Michi Hoyer blinks first. So he's sick of being stuck behind the back of Fabio Grigoletto. He's going to put some fresh tyres potentially and maybe definitely some more fuel in for the second half of this race then. And that really puts the pressure then as we go into the final 30 minutes on Grigoletto and Simoncic. Can they get the field to last? Here comes Zach Vermaak then as Regan Mitchell slots up the inside of him to retake that 19th position in the overall order then. But Zach Vermaak isn't done yet. He's going to try and go around the outside of the final corner. I think Regan Mitchell is going to see that one off pretty sharpish, and there's going to be very, very close to contact through the final corner. I don't know how Zach Vermaak avoided touching him there, but they're going to be side by side, Caitlin, as they go down the back straight then. Is the BMW going to be faster in a straight line, and which one is Louis Gaspar going to decide to get the toe from? That's the big question here. Yeah,
well, the fastest car that we can see right now will be the Ferrari, because he has a choice of slipstreams. The BMW seems to be edging slightly ahead here. Zach Vermaak's going to get that position going down to turn one, but Regan Mitchell is going to challenge on the brakes, and Vermaak covers him off. So Zach Vermaak gets up into that overall 19th position, which I think is 6th or 7th in class, because Prendergast is the class leader in 14th. Meanwhile, Knox is in the pit as well. We saw him having a spin earlier on, and that's why he's been out of contention for a while, but he's been gradually reeling that time back in. And there is our race leader, Grigoletto, who now has 2.2 seconds over Jurnej Simoncic as a result of Marocek having been into the pits. Now is Simoncic's chance to shine. But yeah, Hoyer.
Yeah, interested to see the lap times of Hoyer. 11 seconds of clear air to Guyton Cordell, of course. There'll always be that GT3 traffic that they'll have to deal with periodically. But yeah, Grigoletto starting to pull away a little bit from Simoncic. Now he's not got Hoyer all over the back of him. There's a yellow flag somewhere out on track that clears pretty much instantly. So it's just a little off-track moment for somebody. But yeah, Simoncic is still very much in this one, and it would not surprise me if Simoncic was saving early on to try and get to the end without making a pit stop, whereas Michi Hoyer might sort of be looking at sort of 3rd or 4th place potentially if he is one of the ones that is going aggressive on strategy by pitting, but not necessarily taking the risk by lifting and coasting, which is what you often see going into some of these corners when they can't lap a GT3 in time. They might play it a little bit more safe just to get the field to last that little bit extra. As there's more yellow flags out on track. We're looking at Aurelian Bruce actually having a good race right behind Amos Lorito, and is that I think Arda Ercan in trouble here. No, it's Manninen, sorry. Valtteri Manninen, who was having such a difficult time since that spin, now decides to call it a day. Simoncic was actually back within 7/10 of Grigoletto then, as we look at Zach Vermaak deciding to come in for his stop, and now Aurelian Bruce trying to fight Amos Lorito. So, of course, two very, very similar Cadillacs, but it's the Frenchman chasing down his Italian rival, and Aurelian Bruce, who was 6th last time out at Monza, continuing his rich vein of form then, and Lorito is going to have to start to get aggressive in defense here and hold on to 5th.
They run quite low, don't they? You can see the sparks flying as they go down the end of that straight. That's because, of course, the downforce is pushing them into the ground, and it's why the faster they go, the more they spark. But yeah, here's that lead battle again. Simoncic has basically gained 2 seconds since last time we saw these two. He is right on the tail of Grigoletto, and this is what I was saying. It is his time to shine, because he's now got clean air between himself and Grigoletto in their fight for the lead, and it will be very interesting when these two end up pitting to see where Michi Hoyer comes out in relation to them. I think this is Hoyer's best chance of taking the lead that he's had in the whole race so far, because if Grigoletto and Simoncic hold each other up fighting too much, then Hoyer will end up getting the lead. The disadvantage that Hoyer has, of course, is that he'll be heavier than these two at this point in time, having just filled up with fuel. So on his own, he may not be faster, but it really depends on the traffic, where the traffic falls, and of course how these drivers race amongst themselves. Down the straight they go 0.6 of a second. Sorry, Ed.
The other thing as well is that those pitting later can do a splash and dash as the 59 McLaren always just dealt with by Rigoletto. Simic has to wait extra half a second to negotiate him through the turn 1 hairpin, and that allows Rigoletto just a few precious tenths, so a little bit more breathing room there. But Simic is sort of patiently waiting. You can see him sort of get his legs almost hunched like a tiger essentially as he sort of hunts down Fabio Grigoletto here. Now, because Hoyer has pitted and committed to that strategy, in a way it does sort of take the pressure off of these two, because now they're just racing against each other, and Grigoletto and Simic are just going to react to what the other one does here at this point.
Yep, Brew's in the pits, gets some fuel, gets some tyres, has a brew, and then we'll head back out into the race in 11th position as it stands. And here is Grigoletto still leading by 0.8 of a second over Simic. It seems like Simic can game, but he can't quite get enough to make that overtake. He's going to need Grigoletto to really struggle in traffic at some point if he's going to take advantage. But the trouble is, every time he gets close, they clear the traffic, and then Grigoletto's got clean air again. There you see him flashing the lights at the BMW, going through on the straight. And there's Zach Vermaak pulling right over to the right-hand side. Doesn't want any part of the hypercars coming through. Doesn't want to get in their way. As for the GT3 battle, look, it's up to nearly 8 seconds now between Prendergast and Callum Cripps. Prendergast is doing a fantastic job in that McLaren, and I fear we're not going to see much of him for the rest of this race because we won't have much reason to.
Louis Gaspar in the pits, so surely he's going to be jumped by Wunsch and Ercan. Ercan's only about 0.2 then behind Sebastian Wunsch, one of his rivals in that sprint championship here. So while Arda Ercan missing a couple of crucial rounds at Le Mans, particularly losing a lot of points because the endurance rounds are worth more points in the main championship, 39 points for a win, of course, there. So Ercan may not be in the mix for the overall standings, but he's definitely still got a chance in the sprint of getting some prize money and finishing the top 3 that he needs to in order to achieve that. But yeah, Seb Wunsch here, having undercut Ercan on strategy, is now going to be feeling the pain of putting those tyres through a lot of energy then here at this Fuji Speedway, because now Ercan is going to be on much fresher tyres, and the fuel load will be about the same then, so the car is the same as well. So yeah, Ercan then looking for an opening into the Dunlop hairpin there, but no room left for him to dive up the inside there. So Ercan is just picking his moment, taking his time, the Turkish driver, as he fights with the German in front of him. They're about to lap Marcus Crawford as well. So depending on how many people in front need to make pit stops when they stop as well, this could well be a battle for potentially a spot on the podium or a top 4, top 5. But it really depends what everyone around them who are fighting with does, like Liskovitz, like Prendergast and Callum Cripps. Look at how much the number 3 Cadillac is just boxed in here, and has to get well on the brakes there to avoid hitting Crawford and Seb Wunsch there. And yeah, Seb Wunsch really did not need that, because right behind you see Ercan just watching all the chaos unfold in front of him and just hoping, now where do I make my move here? Now he's got to clear Crawford to keep Wunsch in sight.
Yeah, that was a tricky situation there, because you had 3 different drivers on 3 different laps, but only 2 classes. There's a little touch there between Ercan and Crawford. These 2 are on the same lap, with Ercan having pitted. Through goes Knox as well. Around the outside now goes Ercan. Crawford under no obligation to get out of the way, even though they're not really racing for position. And right around the outside goes Michi Hoyer, and it looks as if Ercan is going to get that one done. But yeah, the Cadillac driver involved in that little squabble just now had no way of knowing that they were on different laps, and that Crawford was probably about to get passed by Ercan, and I think it was Liskovitch that we were watching there, and as a result of that, I think just rather got boxed in and just kind of Sorry, no, they weren't on different laps, were they? It was Sebastian Wunsch who had pitted as well.
Yeah.
So
Wunsch,
that was
and
just
Crawford were all fighting for position. You're right, and
yeah. My apologies.
Crawford is on the older tyres because he hasn't pit yet, whereas the other two have. And yeah, that's why they seem to be gaining so much ground at the moment. Simoncic still within 6/10 of Grigoletto, by the way, in the front in Hypercar, as Hoyer is continuing. If I'm Michi Hoyer and I see how few people pit just after he did in response, I would be feeling a bit worried then with 20 minutes to go, because it could be that everyone else is going to try and eat the fuel out to the end, and he could look very, very exposed here down in 10th position. But yeah, he's certainly got pace and potentially the fresh tyres to sort of chew through the order. It's just that he cannot afford to lose time step on Julie Freeze, for example, as we saw there, with him just breezing around the outside at a 100R. But yeah, the thing that impressed me about Grigoletto, if you compare to the first round of the season, he got the lead after qualifying on the front row at Spa off of Simoncic, and then about 20 minutes into that race, he made a mistake under pressure at the bus stop chicane, went off track, and Simoncic got through and then never really looked back. Grigoletto ended up finishing, I think, 5th or 6th in that race. But here, he's held up to pressure from not only Hoyer, but Simoncic as well for a significantly longer period. We've got 20 minutes to go, and there's every chance Grigoletto could pull this off, but Simoncic will throw the kitchen sink and everything else in his house trying to win this race, because that's the way his brain works. He cannot let any point get out of his fingers if he can help it. He is a point-scoring, race-winning machine. Simoncic, Michi Hoyer too for that matter, but certainly he's taking the risk with that different strategy pitting so early.
We're now into the final third of this race. Grigoletto leads from Simoncic, but only just. Buono is 13 seconds back, then it's Neil, Lorito, Farinelli, Levy, Gago, Quidel and Hoyer. Hoyer, of course, the top driver who has made a pit stop. But as you say, he could be in trouble if the other drivers have more in their tank. Well, there you go. There are the drivers who are pitted. So Bru, Nobs, and Guerin have also been into the pits. And then, of course, in the GT3s, it's Prendergast and Cripps leading us around in their McLarens, separated by 9 seconds as it currently stands. Yeah, you're right about Hoyer. He'll be a little bit nervous about this situation, but I'm sure he knows what he's doing. And that's a good move, quite a late one from Ercan, but I think he's going to make that stick on Sebastian Wunsch. Good move.
Yeah, and he needed to do that because he was starting to get held up by Seb Wunsch as well. To get this strategy to work, he just needs to make up ground as quickly as possible. Yeah, so Seb Wunsch, the undercut working in his favour, but now the tyres starting to fade away. You can see he's just not got the front grip through 100R there. And Arda Ercan now up to 21st position. That's 5th or 6th in class then, as he now has to focus on shape. No, it's actually 8th in class, of course, because there's still a load of people that haven't pit in front of them. So even more reason for Ercan to try and gain ground. But he's got plenty of clear air now. The same cannot be said for Seb Wunsch, of course, who's now got to follow him, shadow the movements of his fellow Ferrari in front of him. Simoncic, though, still within half a second of Grigoletto, and also Lorito is challenging Neil for what is now 4th position here. So Amos Lorito, the Italian head driver coach at Lamborghini Esports, former F1 Esports driver for a Ferrari as well, is now putting Jules Neil, the G-League Esports driver, the young Frenchman, under a huge amount of pressure. So these two have crossed paths, crossed swords before in this championship, and it looks like we're going to see thrilling finish tours now. Michi Hoyer is caught up to the back of Bert Knox, but he could be losing a little bit of time having to deal with all this traffic. And that's the other thing about pitting early, is that suddenly you've arrived early into a bunch of people that didn't expect you to be there, essentially.
I noticed Crawford off the road in the background, but he'd just pitted, so maybe just getting out of the way of people as he had rejoined the circuit. And here is the battle for 4th place between Jules Neal and Amos Lorito, two Cadillac drivers, although different liveried Cadillacs. Hooray for that. Down the straight we go, separated by 3.5 tenths of a second. Lorito gaining. You can see the effect of the slipstream there on the Delta time. He'll be quite close to him by the time of the corner, but it would be a bit of a dive bomb if he was to go for a move. Goes himself to the mirror of Jules Neal. That was not a serious overtaking opportunity. I think he just wanted to say to him, look, I'm here, and if you focus too much on that, you're going to get distracted. So basically he was trying to force Neal into a little bit of a mistake, which can happen when you're nervous, when you're watching your mirrors more than the road ahead of you. But Jules Neal holding firm for the time being. Although a little bit wide through that left-hander there. And Larito is within 0.3 of a second as they head down towards the chicane this time.
Yeah, I wonder Ludo's been saving fuel early in the race, and that was why he backed off from the back of Neal, and now Neal is having to do the same, as we see now Zach Vermaak, after his pit stop, finally clears the similar BMW of Marcus Crawford. There we go into the first corner, but he goes a little bit deep. Can Marcus cut underneath? No, he doesn't quite get the exit that he needs there, so Zach Vermaak has pulled that move off and gotten into the top 10 in the GT3 class once more then, as Larito shadowing Neal all the way. Neal starting to just look a little bit cagey, starting to tense up under the pressure that Larito is pushing him under. This is a really good exit from Amos Larito then as they go back onto the back straight. Simic is also closing right up to the back of Grigoletto, once again within 0.6 then. Here we go across the start finish line. Jules Neal pulls the inside to defend, now goes back to mid the road. Larito will have to go the long way round, struggles under the brakes to get it slowed down for the first corner there. And he's still stuck behind as they go downhill towards the Coca-Cola corner, and it's going to be difficult to make a move into 100 because it's not quite close enough. Neal is putting his car in exactly the right positions to keep that yellow Cadillac behind, and it's the 311 holding onto fourth by the skin of its teeth. That's fantastic defensive driving from Jules Neal here.
Yeah, good stuff there from Neal, and you can tell that despite his age, he is experienced in sim racing. He's not a driver I've come across before, but I can tell that he knows exactly what he's doing. A little bit of a twitch there as he goes into the chicane, gathers it all up and rejoins, well, never went off the road, but rejoins the racing line as they head into the technical section at the end of the circuit. This circuit very fond of tightening radius corners, which is a driver's worst nightmare, especially when you're on tyres that aren't giving you the confidence that you had earlier on in the race. I think Larito's definitely quicker at this point, with all due respect to Jules Neal. Down the straight we go again, separated by about the same amount that they were a lap ago, so still not a real opportunity for Amos Larito, but by the end of the straight he's closer and closer. This has got to be nerve-wracking for Neal. And he takes another little look at him just to put him under threat. And talking of threat, the ever-present threat of Jurnej Simoncic is still just behind Fabio Grigoletto at the front of the field. And every time they pass GT3 traffic, he just has another little look, another little opportunity at getting closer and closer to the Cadillac driver in front.
Yeah, but it sort of works both ways there, doesn't it? Because if Grigoletto can clear the traffic before Simoncic can, just before, say, the Dunlop hairpin, then that gives him a little bit of breathing room because Simoncic has to sort of wait his turn to get through, essentially. But when we were looking at Neal, the rear tyres were starting to light up. I wonder if Neal is maybe just starting to run out of rear grip through some of these corners, and he's just having to hold on. Luca Fingard holds up Grigoletto out of the final corner, and Simoncic has a chance to run. This could be his best shot yet of taking the lead then. What can Fabio Grigoletto do as they clear Marcus Crawford now and go over the start-finish line with 12 minutes to go? Jurnej Simoncic is gearing up the BMW for an attack into the first corner, and Grigoletto defends the inside very, very early on into that first hairpin there. Is Simoncic going to try and cut underneath him? No, he can't, because Grigoletto has blocked the inside before he gets there. And the Cadillac holds the lead then. He's just got to hold on for 12 minutes more. But Simoncic is going to make them the longest 12 minutes of his life, because he is just looking at every little opportunity. They go round the outside of Zach Vermaak, who cuts right to the inside as they go towards the hairpin here. And Simoncic looking to again cut underneath, get the best drive as they go towards the hairpin. And this could be his best shot yet, Caitlin, of making the move.
Yeah, fantastic car positioning from Grigoletto. He is all over, well, Simoncic is all over the back of him, but Grigoletto just puts his car in exactly the right position to stop Simoncic from taking advantage, even on those also crucial corner exits where someone can outsmart you, get the upper hand by ducking underneath you. Grigoletto is still exactly where he needs to be, and you can see the frustration with Jurnej Simoncic's body language as he goes through this tighter section. Now we're going towards that start-finish straight yet again. This is where Simoncic had his opportunity a lap ago, and he's not as close this time around. Admittedly, you don't have the pinch point of the GT3 traffic that you had a lap ago. There is a GT3 car coming up, but they should get past it relatively easily in a straight line. And another serious challenge has been fended off here by Fabio Grigoletto, who seems imperious out in front.
Yeah, he does. He is just holding up super well, rock solid, against all the pressure that Simoncic can throw at him. As we see Marco De Buono pits from third, so we are starting to see the Hypercars with 10 minutes to go, running very, very low on fuel, especially those that are trying to push to make a gap or are battling as well. And Prendergast, of course, in the duty-free lead, has got a 12-second lead over Callum Kritz. Might he be heading to the pits for 2 corner as well? David Levy is joining Marco De Buono in the pits. Larita goes well off track through Coca-Cola there. So that's just how much he's pushing to keep Neil in sight for what is now the fight for the podium overall. So the stakes are getting higher and higher. Surely Hoyer has undercut his way past De Buono and David Levy. Indeed he has. He's right behind Gaitin Quidel now in the battle for 7th. So Hoyer, if the others don't pit in front of him, this could well be a sort of damage limitation drive for him in these final 10 minutes where he's got to make these moves quickly. But Simoncic has only one position he's interested in, and that's the one right in front of him. And Grigoletto has just got to be perfect here to hold on to this win. But can he hold on, Caitlin? Because this is more pressure than he's ever been under before.
Look at this, they're coming down pit lane, I think, and into the pits, and it's just Grigoletto. So Simoncic stays out. He was slipstreaming him right to the end of that, and Fabio Grigoletto does dive into pit lane, which will temporarily halt the battle. But I tell you what, I think they're probably all going to end up coming down pit lane in the end. You see Jules Neal and Amos Larito coming in. These two were fighting with each other, and the battle will continue after these pit stops. But yeah, you were saying earlier that the likes of Michi Hoyer will be a little nervous as to, you know, will my opponents pit or will they stay out? I'd be a lot more nervous if I was a GT3 car that had made a pit stop, because they can potentially go the hour. I don't think any of the Hypercars will. And there is Michi Hoyer going through now. The question is, where will he be in relation to Grigoletto? Grigoletto comes out ahead. He's not far ahead, but he is ahead, and that's what matters.
Yeah, there we go. So Grigoletto pits from the lead, comes out in second then. So that's a relief to him. But Michi Hoyer had to make up too much ground. And Jules Neal's got a penalty. I thought he was a bit locking up on the pit entry there. And clearly he just did not get the pit lane speed limit under the speed limit by the time he hit the line on entry. So that is going to be a drive-through penalty, and that hands potentially for position to Amos Larito, although it would if Marco De Buono and Aurelian Brew hadn't come out in between the two. So Aurelian Brew, like Michi Hoyer, undercut to get past Amos Larito. You see them right in front of you now, dueling around right behind Marco De Buono then. So it's been really fascinating to see all these Hypercars trying to cover each other. And Simoncic is following Prendergast in as well. So now this is absolutely crucial. Can Grigoletto re-inherit the lead here, or will Simoncic do the splash and dash, put in less fuel, and outsmart everybody?
That put Cripps up to the lead of GT3, and I was half expecting that, but that's still a little bit of a surprise in the GT3 category. That Prendergast is going to have to do a splash and dash. Will everyone have to do that, or can Cripps get the upper hand on him now? Jenny Simoncic, of course, the overall race leader, exiting the pits. He'd have had a slightly shorter pit stop than, say, Hoyer, who stopped earlier. And I think he's going to get the lead here, because they're going to be side by side, and it looks as if he has. So Simoncic leads the race, and it's 2.5 seconds. So he does have the lead. Grigoletto second, Hoyer third. Great job there from Jone Simoncic to get the overcut on Grigoletto by pitting a lap later and using that clean air to his advantage.
Essentially, having to take on a lap less fuel made the difference there, or maybe even Jone Simoncic was cleverly saving fuel before that point, so that he didn't have to put as much on now. But yes, certainly Grigoletto will be pushing up and make up those 2 seconds, but Simoncic has once again decided to outfox rather than outrace Grigoletto. He couldn't force the issue on track, so he's done it through the pit stops. As now we see Erchan trying to get into, I think this is 4th position in class against Erwin Liskowitz, looking battered and bruised, and they almost touch each other as Erchan cuts to right underneath him as they go towards the hairpin here at Dunlop, and he's going to try and go all the way around the outside. The number 54 Ferrari again, contact made at the apex there. Liskowitz, he's spun around and through. Oh, dearie me, that was a bit messy between the two there. Liskowitz and Erchan just not giving each other enough room.
Yeah, the 55 and the 54 coming into contact, and unfortunately that's going to cost them both some time. Liskowitz going for another dive. Whoa! Ercan saw him at the very last second and bailed out of it, ran off the road. So Liskowitz back through, but it's not done yet. Look, they're still side by side out the final corner, and they will be going on to the back straight. Liskowitz backs off so he can get that slipstream. He gets a much better exit out of the corner. Now we look to Buono fighting with Brew. Brew much closer to Buono than he was before these pit stages as well. I think he's gained out of all of this. Down towards turn 1, wide goes Buono, and Brew touches him, I think. They bump wheels, and there are the Ferraris further back. Ercan and Liskowitz still side by side, and Liskowitz and Ercan gets through. So Ercan gets through into 16th place overall and 3rd place in class.
Oh, another dent added to the many war wounds on the side of Liskowitz's Ferrari. The pole
and Kritz pitted. Kritz pitted, so Prendergast leads again.
Yep, there we go. I think that was pretty inevitable for Cameron Kritz, the captain of that lead. But he's still come out second in class. This is the fight for the final spot on the podium. Oh, big hit there. So Erchan had to go wide, and Liskowitz clatters into the side of him for good measure. No love lost between these two, is there? And the more they bump and barge into each other, the closer Sebastian Bunch gets. So it's a three-way fight for the final spot on the podium between our three Ferraris. Meanwhile, Rigoletto has cut some time out of Simic, just a second behind then, with 4.5 minutes left to go. So it's not done yet in the fight for victory then. But Aurelian Brew still all over the back of De Buono, and we know Neil has got that penalty hanging over him. So even though he's got those 6/10 behind him, squabbling away at him, he is surely going to have to let them through, whether he likes it or not. Oh, and another dive from Liskowitz. Oh, he is not being particularly cooperative. No. Into the pit comes Neil, so that's going to drop him, I think, outside the top 10. Here's Lorito, all up the inside of Aurelian Brew. That's a bold move into the first corner there. Yellow Cadillac on yellow Cadillac action too. And it's Lorito up to 5th then, right behind Marco De Buono. Now Seb Bunch is past Erchan. He's having a go at Liskowitz. What a late charge we're seeing from our championship leader, Caitlin.
I bet they collided again. The Ferrari's on the exit there, because Bunch has got both of them now. So somehow they've lost time, lost momentum going onto the straight. Look at the slight little, well, Liskowitz threatened to go for a dive, but Bunch got through. They're still side by side. You could say they're bunching up here. And we've got Liskowitz on the outside into that fast turn 2. And it looks as if he's going to get straight back through, although does run wide now. Through goes one of the Hypercar Cadillacs on the outside. They rub wheels, they rub wheel houses, and here comes Arda Erchan. He's not out of it just yet. 3 wide going into the left-hander. Oh my goodness me, tyre smoke flies, and it's hard to tell who gets out in front actually. It's Liskowitz again with that battered and bruised side of his Ferrari. As through goes Neil, but yeah, I think there's a bit of red mist descending here between the two. Oh my goodness, between the 3 Ferraris at this point. I know that Erchan and Liskowitz both have Vista AF Corsa liveries, but they're certainly not acting like teammates here. I think they're pretty angry with each other, to be honest. And Bunch gets punched off the road. Back up the inside he goes. He's not out of it yet. This is ridiculous stuff here.
Yeah, I didn't know you could run that. It's Felipe Massa, Robert Kubica levels of side by side, but in the dry here at Fuji then, as we go to the final 2 minutes, and Bunch decides to kiss the back of Trent's car for good measure in the final corner there. So Sebastian Bunch, far from gaining 2 places, immediately lost them again. Tried to go around the outside of the hairpin, and that really did not go the way he was quite intending it to do so. But he's still all over the back of Erchan. He's fighting for position in the top 3 in the Sprint Championship, and Erchan is really the thorn in the side of Sebastian Bunch, as he's been this entire race. And again, Erchan defends extremely well into the first corner. Grigolato's been 3/10 then of Simic. Is Simic in trouble here? Maybe he didn't have as much fuel left as he thought, and now we're going into what will almost certainly be the penultimate lap. I think we'll just about squeeze in one more after this then. But Grigoletto is caught right back up. He's not giving up on his hopes for victory here. And Simičić now, the boot is well and truly on the upper foot. He's being held up by the duty-free. The number 95 gets well clear, does Fabian Ballet. And Grigoletto, could there be a chance to, just at the heel of this race, turn things around and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat?
We're in for a grandstand finish here in Hypercar. It's the exact opposite of what we saw earlier, where now Simičić is having to carve his way through the traffic and he's not getting through as quickly. Fabio Grigoletto, after such a sterling drive early on to hold the lead for so long, still has a chance to win this. Little bit of indecisiveness there from Jene Simičić as to which side of that McLaren he's going to go, and nearly gets taken out by the BMW. Now as they break down for the chicane, it is still anyone's game, and it's going to be very close as to whether or not this is the last lap of the race. They've got about 2 or 3 seconds in hand either way, and if that timer ticks to 0 before to be honest, I very much hope we get one more lap in this race. I don't want to see this one end. I think, Ed, we have to commit a heist and hide the checkered flag. We're coming out to the final corner now. Will this be the end of the race, or will they get another lap? I'm not so sure, actually. There's about 10 seconds left. This could be it, or they could go again.
Yeah, no way can Simičić slow down enough. He's about to cross the line here with just 4 seconds left to go. There we go. Checkered flag out, but Simičić and Grigoletto are already through. Simičić could not have slowed down even if he wanted to, because it would have handed victory to Fabio Grigoletto. There we go. So Grigoletto will get one more shot then, but is it enough? He flashes his lights in excitement. He knows the race is not over, but there's no more traffic to take advantage of, and potentially Grigoletto is just going to fall just a little bit short here, but he can't afford to give up. He's got to keep the pressure on. He's still driven an absolutely fantastic race from pole position, but Simičić just had enough in hand in the strategy to get track position, and he's doing enough to hold on at the present moment. Through Dunlop, they're about to arrive. Can Grigoletto put in a late break? Surely he's not going to throw away second position here with a clumsy move up the inside, but he gets very, very close indeed then. And now this is going to be so tense through the final few corners, Caitlin, as Simičić just fights for control here, and he fights to hold on to the lead of the race with Fabio Grigoletto, his first win just inches away, but Simičić denying him every step of the way then. Just another corner to go, and then the flat out run to the straight. Simičić goes right to the inside, gets ultra defensive. Grigoletto always going to try and get the superior run. It's a drag race to the line. Wide goes Simičić, and it's surely going to fall just short here. Fabio Grigoletto as they cross the line, and it's surely going to be Simičić that takes victory by just a few meters then as they cross the line. Oh, I can't believe it. 0.079 of a second. What a fantastic win from Jene Simičić, but Fabio Grigoletto pushed him every single step of the way. Here comes Amos Cerrito. He's not given up on trying to get fourth off of Marco Di Buono, but Di Buono just going to have enough in hand to hold firm. That's his best result in that Ferrari that he's gotten all season as Amos Cerrito. Fifth, 2 races in a row. No performance from these 2 Italians, both members of Tatum Esports, of course. And where is Kieran Prendergast as we look at Clement Gagoud holding off Gaëtan Quidel? Prendergast is going to be a significant way, over 12 seconds clear of Callum Cripps then. So he's had to wait 6 rounds for this, hasn't he? But he has driven everything absolutely perfectly today at Fuji, Caitlin. It's going to be a first win of the season and retaking the championship lead for Kieran Prendergast then. Just a run to the line to go. And after so much bad luck, he ran out of fuel at Spa. He had a couple of penalties. He was fallen short just by a few meters on several occasions. He swerves across the line, and Bams and Kieran Prendergast can finally celebrate because he wins here, round 6 at Fuji, and deservedly so. It never looked like being anybody but Prendergast today.
Drive of the day, I'd say, for Prendergast there. That was a sterling drive, and I said after qualifying that he had such an advantage it would be hard to beat him. I don't think anyone in this field could have beaten him in that car today. So Kieran Prendergast wins the race and makes it look easy. Cripps second, and what a drive what a battle between these Ferraris a little bit further back. But yeah, as for the prototype class, oh my goodness, that finish. That is the closest finish I've ever seen to a prototype race. And I'm so glad you invited me to this today, Ed. Thank you so much for this, because otherwise I would probably not have ever witnessed a race like that. a drag race to the line. They were side by side, less than a car length in it as they crossed the line, less than a tenth of a second. And there you see it. Well, there's the GT3 category. So it was Liskovic who took third in the end after that great fight with Sebastian Wunsch. And actually, Fabian
You see
Ballet
Liskovic's
passed.
car just
Yeah.
broke down almost right after he crossed the line. It was so bad and bruised, but somehow he held on to his second podium. So fantastic there. But let's go through the full results then in GT3 in order, just for the benefit of the highlights, Caitlin, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So Kieran Prendergast then, after 37 laps, takes his first victory in the GT3 class of the season. He will be absolutely delighted with that. Took pole position, scampered off into the distance, and made all the right calls today. And he is 12.5 seconds. If Callum Cripps gets his another podium, he had to wait so long for his first at Monza, and then a week later he gets another, backing up his good friend and stablemate Kieran Prendergast then. So Cripps in second. Liskovic battering bruise him. Wunsch and Erchan had all sorts of contact in the final stages there, but it was Liskovic who somehow held on despite the car looking like it wouldn't pass an MOT. The number 54 is third with Seb Wunsch. Was the title winner going into the championship leader going into today. Not anymore. The 86 has to settle for fourth after that early pit stop. Fabian Ballet is able to get through to fifth. Erchan had a late problem that dropped him to sixth at the end there. Then it was Luca Fingard in seventh. Michel Rodriguez finished eighth. Regan Mitchell was ninth. And the top 10 was rounded out by Louis Gaspar in the Ferrari. Our final finisher, Zach Vermack, he was not quite able to make up the ground that I think he would have hoped. Marcus Crawford, though, we didn't quite see what happened to Marcus. He had to retire. And Valtteri Maninen, the early spin in the contact with Gaspar, meaning he was not able to get to the end either. But now here come the Hypercar results. There you go, confirmation then. Oh. Simoncic by 60 hundredths of a second. I think it's pretty close between that and the Interlagos finish, which of the sprint races had the closer margin. But this time it's Simoncic that's the other side of it and takes his third win in a row. But by far, he had to fight for that one every step of the way because Grigolotto on pole controlled so much of that race. And it's cruel in a way that he fell just short at the end. But nonetheless, he never gave up at any point. I think that was certainly his strongest drive of the season so far by Fabio Grigolotto. Michi Hoyer, he pit halfway through, tried to do something different on strategy, ended up being 5 seconds adrift in the end. So it was a valiant effort, but Michi Hoyer, this is going to lose him ground in both championships. And now Simoncic could be a factor in the sprint championship as well, as leading the overall standings by a significant margin now. Marco De Buono, his best result in fourth, just kept Amos Lorito at bay, who holds on to another fifth position. Aurelian Bru takes sixth for the second race in a row as well, for that matter. And then David Levy, we didn't talk too much about David Levy, but he made some good moves to get from 10th, I think, on the grid all the way up to 7th, then just ahead of Daniele Farinelli, who is on a run of top 8 finishes at the moment after finishing 7th last time as well. Clement Gagourde held on to 9th just from Gaëtan Quidelden. So those two Cadillacs put on a great show, finishing inside the top 10. Jules Neal, you got to feel a little bit for Neil because things just did not go his way on the strategy today. Down in 11th position. I almost forget what happened to Neil because he was looking good for the podium and he spent
the penalty.
That was it, spend the pit lane. Now I remember. All that drama I'd forgotten. But he at least does, although he only gets the 1 point for finishing, he does still beat Bert Knops and Julian Gurin. So all of our hypercars did get to the end then. And that is definitely positive. But now we got two GT3 runners that are in the interview and waiting to be dragged in to talk to us, Caitlin. I suppose usually I end up doing the talking when we commentate together with the interviews, so I guess I'll carry on that tradition. But let's not keep him waiting in suspense any longer. Let's talk to the man of the hour, the GT3 class winner, Kieran Prendergast. So, Kieran Prendergast joins us now. And Kieran, you did it! Congratulations on your first GT3 class win in the VMS Pro Series. You put in a stellar qualifying lap. You did one that was good enough for pole, and then you went 4 tenths faster anyway at the end of the session. And then the race, it was a bit of a dream race for you. Exactly, I think, what you'd hoped for, wasn't it? Because you pulled out the gap. Callum was sort of helping you out, defending from Seb Wunsch and Erchan, wasn't it? You pulled out, what was it, 12.5-second lead by the end. Had to make the pit stop right at the end with Simoncic. I'm sure that wasn't really a factoring in your mind at all. You just focused on your own race, And yeah, Fuji, all the cards fell your way today. And after all the bad luck at Monza, what a difference a week makes.
Yeah, finally, man. Boy. First of all, GG's to Callum Cripps on the P2, and GG's to Erwin Miskowitz on P3 as well. I actually put in a bit of work, a bit of practice this time to make sure that I could seal the win and the pole position and stuff. The quali actually, I was actually missing quite a bit of time, to be honest, in quali. But yeah, it seemed like we had enough pace going into the qualifying session and the race to sort of get the win and the pole position.
So this is obviously this result. You've been waiting for it a long time. It must be a sort of emotional, a proud moment for you, and I know your dad and all your fans are celebrating in the chat as well. But everyone was a bit distracted because the Hypercar had a very, very close finish between the top two. But of course, that should take nothing away from your performance as well. Even though there wasn't a whole lot of battling this race, I think. Yeah, there's nothing. I can't think of a. I think Caitlin said you were driver of the day in my co-commentator, so I'm sure you wouldn't disagree with that because it didn't look like there were any bits where you were remotely in trouble. And even when the hypercars was coming to lap you, you were like, right, you get through. I'm doing everything I need to do. I'm not going to worry about you guys.
Yeah, so it was all about minimal risk today, to be honest, and sort of damage limitation from the last race as well. So happy with the win overall as well. So I think that puts me back on the top of the championship. I think I'm not too sure where Seb finished in the end, but yeah, from the looks of things, it looked like the hypercar finish looked pretty close. To be honest, 600ths was the finish time. I think in the end between Yone and Fabio, if I'm right in saying.
It was, yes.
Yeah, I'll probably watch that back and see how that sort of played out. But yeah, I saw Yone come flying behind me in the pit lane. I was thinking, cool, that's a bit close. But yeah, like I said, just minimal risk and making sure that I bring it home.
Yeah, so I've just done the maths very, very quickly. So provisionally, you are on 123 points in the overall championship to Seb Vunch, who's now on 112. I think he finished fourth, just behind Liskowitz in the end. So yeah, you've gone from being 2 points behind to that's just less than what's one less than 12? 11 ahead then. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, we're gonna get the maths problem simple now because you've done all the maths with the fuel calculations and such. Was there any thought about trying to get to the end? Because I know Callum went a couple of laps longer than you. Did you think about doing the same, or did you think now I'll just get out of the way now because I don't want to risk it?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a weird strategy that the Ferraris were doing, to be honest, because when we saw Seb pit halfway through the race and then Erkan sort of did something similar, we were like, oh, that's quite early, to be honest. But I know that Callum fuel saved and I did a bit of fuel saving as well towards the end, but we overfueled just in case we didn't have the same nightmare as Spa and I think also Interlagos as well. But yeah, overall, I think Callum did a great job as well. And yeah, looking forward to the next race.
Indeed. Which, of course, if I just check the schedule very, very quickly back of my head, it is Circuit of the Americas, of course, March 2nd. So that's our final sprint race of the season. And good news in the sprint championship as well for you, Kieran. Provisionally, this puts you on 68 points. So you are clear of, I believe, Erchan might be the next one on 51 points. So you've gone from being equal with Arda Erchan in the lead of the sprint championship to significantly ahead by about 17 points now, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So it's all coming up Prendergast finally. And it's great to see, Kieran, because you had to. There were so many near misses, so many disappointments, and today I think certainly went a long way to making up for that. So congratulations, and I think we'll let you celebrate your victory. And only 2 more to go, and maybe you can win this whole thing. Who knows?
Yes, yeah. Thank you guys as well. I think you guys did a great job with the organising and whatnot of the event. But yeah, thank you again, and I'll catch you later.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Kieran, and we'll see you. We'll see you next time. So, one man waiting to be interviewed, though, is our second place finisher, Callum Cripps, and he certainly was in a few more battles today. He had a lot, he had a lot more of the action right in his rearview mirror for all of this race. So let's hear what he has to say about his race. So we're joined now by our second place finisher in the GT3 class. It is, of course, for the second race in a row, Callum Cripps. So Callum, congratulations. That was a really, really smart drive, a good defensive drive as well. Once you got up to second, you had a good move, made a good move on Arda Erchan early on from, I think it was third or fourth on the grid. And you certainly did Kieran a big solid today by keeping some of his big main championship rivals in both championships behind him. But nonetheless, there was a bit of self-interest there too in your own title aspirations. And there was a bit of an interesting call to go a lap longer in terms of before your pit stop than Kieran. So you did get to lead the race, albeit briefly for the first time, which must be a nice little novelty for you. But of course, at Monza, you missed out by 9/10. Here, you miss out by 12.5 seconds. But of course, you've got to feel happy for Kieran, though, who had so many disappointments this season. Finally, in round 6, he gets the win, and you get a second podium in a row for good measure, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, congrats to Kieran. Obviously, he should have won at least probably 3 races by now, but he's just had bad luck from
Spa. He definitely should have won because he ran out of fuel on that last lap. That was very cool.
My fault as well, because I basically, we were trying to work out the fuel strat and I got it wrong and told him wrong. So yeah, because we were
you had your own fuel to worry about. I think.
Yeah, I did. I nearly ran out as well. So but yeah, no, it was great drive from Kieran, obviously, again, and he puts in the hours and that's the result, So yeah, congrats to him. I was surprised actually with like Kieran was saying, with the strat of the Ferraris, because that was I thought one of them had crashed at one point because the pit lanes looked so awkward. I thought one of them went into the wall, but yeah, surprised at that. But we had the Ferraris were both very slow on the straight, so I think they were either running a lot of wing or a lot of rake, because we just could drive away from them even in the tow. So yeah, quite surprised at that. But yeah, happy with P2 again, and I'll try and get a win this season. But if Kieran's involved anywhere, then I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and of course we know for the next Pro Series Championship, there are a lot of top drivers looking to have a go in GT3 as well. So only 2 more rounds potentially for you to get that win in Circuit of the Americas and Bahrain. But it's good to see you not only break your podium streak last time, get onto the podium for the first time last time at Monza, but now you're making a bit of a habit of it. The McLaren finally feels like it's coming good. Like you say, maybe the Ferraris got the setup a little bit wrong today, because we saw how dominant they were at Le Mans, and it seems to have turned around completely since then in these last 2 races, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I know Kieran mainly is on LMU the whole time, whereas I switch between RF2 with VC still. So it's a lot of different varieties of GT3.
Yeah, I've been commentating on you in that as well. So
yeah, of course, yeah, sure. So yeah, we've been trying to do a lot of effort, put a lot of effort into that to get the car up there, and then also try and jump over to LMU on the Sunday as well. So. But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to what's going to happen with LMU. It's especially with the updates coming into summer. It should be really, really good. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
So you get a couple of, I think we get another week's break before we come back March 2nd at COTA. Good track for you, COTA? You think it's going to be one that plays to your strengths?
No idea. I need to buy it first. I haven't even got it.
Okay, so I can lend you about a tenner, maybe. You'll see.
Yeah, that'll do. I like COTA as a track, but I've never driven it on a sim or in the real life. So yeah, we'll find out in 2 weeks.
I guess it's the journey into the unknown for many drivers, yourself included, then Callum. But congratulations on another brilliant second position. Fantastic defensive driving and some good moves early in the race to get high on the podium. And yeah, you never know. I think that the closer and closer that win gets, the less and less likely you're going to want to give it up when the opportunity presents itself. So I'm sure there'll be a couple more, and we wish you all the best, Callum.
Thank you very much.
Finally, we have got another driver that's just arrived at the very last minute, and it's our 3rd place finisher, Erwin Liskowitz, that was involved in all sorts of contact today, but somehow held on to final step on the podium. So maybe the poll will have some interesting things to say to us about his race. So Erwin joins us now in the interview room. It was a bit of a interesting one for you. Lots of contact.
Yeah.
Throughout, especially that battle with Arda Erchan and Seb Wunsch at the end then. So Obviously, at the start, you were damaged pretty much from near the beginning, weren't you? The car was looking battered and bruised, but you never gave up. You fought your way through. I think you were you one of the ones that undercut pit fairly early on, didn't you? And then,
No, actually, I pitted quite late. The plan was to split the race into 2 equal stints because that seemed to be the strat if I wanted to change the tires. But like in the middle of the race, I noticed that the pace is quite good. Like the drop-off doesn't seem to be too harsh. I mean, I did try to take care of my rears, and I think it paid off. So I ended up pitting quite late. Not as late as fuel on board let me, but still quite late. And then it was a matter of defending the position. I mean, it got really heated. I had to use the part of me that I used in TCR racing in the past, even though I didn't want to do so. But I mean, one thing I must say I noticed on LMU is that the netcode is amazing. The contacts are quite forgiving, and that makes people drive a bit more aggressively than they should, I feel like. So it's quite easy to use that mercy of the contact system in a bad way. And I feel like that happened in this battle, but it was fun, so I like no hard feelings.
Yeah, it did remind me a lot of a touring car race there. There was a couple of moments where you were sort of diving up the inside very opportunistically on Arda, and then Arda and Seb decided to squabble away as well. And that was that what ended up deciding that battle? Because we're obviously focused on about 3 other battles that are happening at the same time as well. Was it just Arda and Seb ended up crashing into each other and you were able to coast it home in third, or?
I think we had some, like, basically I took the inside of the hairpin I mean chicane, hairpin, whatever, like, you know which corner we're talking about, at the bottom of the hill. And yeah, Sebastian turned into me a bit and he lost some momentum and he lost some ground on me, and then he was side to side with Arda, and I think Hull broke loose after that contact between them, so I was lucky because...
That's an accurate description.
Yeah, I mean, we need to talk this through with the boys because it's a bit much. Like I'm not the type of guy that hears the chunk from the bodywork being smashed and gets heated immediately. I'm like, okay, it's fine, but like most of these contacts, for example, I was either losing rotation or someone was like sending the nose into like a spot that was closing all the time, and I knew what I was doing. I had to turn out of the corner a couple of times. So I mean, I won that battle, so that's good. But I would rather have a bit cleaner battles in the future.
Certainly, and of course, the second podium of the season for you after finishing third at Le Mans as well. You're on 51 points in the championship, exactly the same as Arda Ercan, and then Fabien Ballet is fourth in the standings on 59 points provisionally after today. Of course, so you got one driver equal on points with Arda Ercan and another that's just another 8 points ahead of you. Do you think you can get that? Obviously, there's no prize money for fourth, of course, but there's still a lot of pride. It's an important position in the top 10 that gets you, an invite back to next season's championship in VMS Pro. So, how hard are you going to fight Ballet and Ercan for that fourth place then?
To be fair, I'm going to do as much as I can. However, some real-life commitments are going to hinder my progress for next week. but we'll give it a go. Today I had not a lot of practice, like an hour. So I think that result was... I mean, for the first 3 races, I spent good 6-7 hours each week to prepare. And to get this result with barely any preparation, I'm happy with that. Hopefully next week is going to be the same.
An hour well spent. Well, I got some bad news. I'm pretty sure our next race at Circuit of the Americas is March 2nd, so I'm pretty sure that's not next week.
I meant in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks, okay, yeah. So you do get a little break on the 23rd at least. But you're looking forward to Circuit of the Americas? Good circuit for you, Owen?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's very diverse when it comes to corners that we can encounter on the circuit. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's very easy to lose some time in the middle part, which is very technical. So we'll see. And I think we can... I'm not sure, I'm just speculating, but there might be some update coming, maybe.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe.
Let's hope it one that helps out the Ferrari drivers like yourself then, because they
Yeah,
certainly
yeah.
haven't had things their own way as they did early in the season when it was only Ferraris that were winning basically for literally the first 5 rounds were won by Ferraris, and today was the first time McLaren won. They got a 1-2 as well, and you were the best of the Ferraris today, so you did an absolutely fantastic job. You entertained us a lot, and after your second podium of the season, we hope there's many more to come. So thank you very much for them to talk to us, Erwin, and we'll let you enjoy that third place, and we wish you best of luck in the fight for 4th in the GT3 standings.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Thank you a lot. Till next time.
Cheers. So there we go. As Erwin Liskowitz vacates the commentary box, that's our final interviewee. None of the Hypercars runners wanted to interview us, but we did get to interview all 3 of our podium finishers in GT3, which is certainly a novelty. So I'm not sure if Caitlin is still here for just final thoughts before we wrap up. Yes, she is. Okay.
Yeah.
So Caitlin, as you said earlier, incredibly entertaining race. Obviously, apart from Prendergast having his own quiet little Sunday drive, and I think he deserved it, to be fair, there's no issues whatsoever, but everywhere else it was action everywhere you looked, in the fight for 3rd in GT3 and the fight for the lead in Hypercar. Pretty much every position contested, with some very, very close driving and some good wheel-to-wheel battling pretty much throughout the hour.
Yeah, my final thoughts are, once again, just thank you for having me. This is a very professional league. I'm not going to lie. I was very, very impressed by especially the Hypercar drivers. The fact that all 13 of them got to the flag. I was very impressed by the big names that I saw racing here. You know, Jurne Simoncic, Michi Hoyer, Matthew Cripps. I knew the name. I just looked him up. Callum Cripps. Sorry, Callum Cripps. Just looked him up. Ex-Euro NASCAR driver. I knew the name.
Of course, yeah.
But yes. Anyway, I very much enjoyed this. The racing was fantastic. Oh my goodness, so close at the end. And I've got to say, this was the first time I've seen Le Mans Ultimate, the new simulator. Until today, I didn't even know it was out yet. Like, I knew it was in the works. I didn't know it had been officially released. I am very impressed and actually very excited to see where it goes from here. So, yeah, once again, thank you for having me. Thank you to the chat for being active and supportive. There were a lot more people here than I expected today. And, I mean, obviously you're having your regular commentator back from next time. But if you ever need me, I would absolutely be willing to come back again.
Absolutely, and it's been a pleasure having you as well, Caitlin. And certainly we can put that review on the Studio 397. Should definitely put that on the back if they release a box for Le Mans Ultimate, as they used to do back in the day. That could certainly go on the Steam page for sure. But but anyway, congratulations once again then to our 2 winners. Jurne Simoncic just holding off Fabio Grigoletto. A spirited, fierce challenge from Grigoletto, who was absolutely sublime today as well. And Prendergast, of course, breaking his duck finally with that win in GT3. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the penultimate round, our final sprint race of the season, of course. That's going to be our sprint race title decider at Circuit of the Americas. Don't miss it. There's certainly still plenty to play out in those championships. And then, of course, our endurance round, the final endurance round, will be at Bahrain on the 9th of March. So don't miss that either, because that's the overall decider as well. But I've been Edward Hunter. Thank you to Caitlin Penny joining me in the commentary box, and to Nicolas Domino in the broadcast booth. And thank you very much to you for watching as well. Have a good night, and we'll see you sometime soon.